connecting. I know. I mean, I can see all you guys. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm on the internet.
You would think.
There we go.
Yep, I just got the alert.
That's how it starts. I can see you guys. Perfect.
Love it.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to episode 111. Participation trophies is the theme tonight. And we are going to be remotely doing this as usual in the current situation at this point. So I've got Gary Wassmuth here in the bottom right corner. And I've got AJ Kazmierzak in the bottom left. And then we got Nate Hale from his back patio with his cans on as usual.
He's right up there.
He's right there.
Yeah, there
so I was expecting Gary to go, he's right up there.
That's what I did too.
But I thank you guys for being a part of this. I am excited. I hope this feed is working, guys. Let us know if you can see us all, because somehow my iPad is ahead of the feed on my laptop, so I'm not really sure what's that's about. So hopefully you guys can see us, hear us, all that good stuff. So please comment. Nate, if you want to go ahead with your sponsors while I share this.
Yeah, so episode 111, Participation Trophy, being brought to you by Tinderbox Easton Town Center, Columbus, Ohio. They are providing tonight the absolutely fantastic Davidoff Yamasa. If you've never tried this cigar, definitely worth trying. First one I've ever had was very, very recently. So absolutely fantastic cigar. We'll get into more of that later. We also want to thank Altadis USA for their continued sponsorship of the podcast. So Monte Cristo, H. Upman, Romeo Julieta, including our second cigar of the evening, is going to be the Aging Room Original, which is another fantastic blend. Re-released last year when they came out with now the number one cigar of the year in Nicaragua, as well as the Connecticut and Maduro, with different packaging than what they used to use before. And then we also want to thank the BS Cigar Company. We got plenty of BS Golds and Silvers in the shop. Absolutely killer smoke. Getting a lot of positive feedback on this cigar, so grab them while you can. Don't forget about the Patreon page, patreon.com/bourbon-and-BS podcast. If you become a patron before we get all the tiers finalized, then the swag that we're doing, such as glasses, shirts, possibly some other stuff, you'll be able to get some of that, and then we'll set up tiers in the future and have some awesome swag coming your guys' way. So don't forget to like, to share, to leave a review, a comment, join us in the live chat, ask questions and participate. You don't get a trophy for this one for, making comments, but we can see what we can do.
Exactly.
And share it to any of the groups that you guys follow, any of the bourbon groups, any of the cigar groups, anything like that.
Fantastic. So what do you guys, before we go on the audio side, what are you guys sipping on tonight for everyone out there? And you guys, please comment as well.
I got a Bullet Bourbon, the Frontier whiskey. Nice bottle. You're looking right around $35, $37 for a bottle of this. And just goes good. It'll really go good with what I'm smoking right at first, is the Davidoff Yamasa.
Nice.
I'm
AJ, go ahead.
Oh, okay, cool. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get hooked up with you guys in order to get the cigar. So I actually broke into one that I'm pretty excited about. I don't know if people can see it, but it's the Rocky Patel Special Edition. Heard nothing but good things about this guy, so I'm excited to see how well it smokes, as well as tasting notes and things like that. And then I actually was very fortunate through the ski shop that I worked at. Sometimes people can tell what other people drink, and I actually had a customer bring me a bottle of Henry McKenna.
Nice.
And so I've had 2 pours out of it so far. I think it's delicious. I might actually add a little bit of a dash of water tonight to see if it opens up any. But yeah, really good bourbon. At first I never really understood the hype of it. It seemed like everybody wanted it. You know, it was just another one of those ones that it didn't sit on the shelf very long, just like a Buffalo Trace or a Weller or something like that. Now I will have one of these in my collection at all times.
Well, a year ago, AJ, that bottle was going for $31. Now it's $49.99.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, beforehand we were talking about you never see bourbons going down in value. It seems like they're always skyrocketing. And I would say at $49.95, I probably won't keep any extras. It'll be just one of those.
Before we get too deep into this, let's save that for the podcast.
Cool. Sounds good. Nate, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking the New Holland beer barrel bourbon. So if you remember a few weeks ago when we had Nook and Nate Blurry on the podcast,
Yep.
Nate's a distributor for New Holland, and what was that other company? I forget what the other company was. So if anyone's familiar with Dragon's
St.
Milk,
Liberty.
yeah, St. Liberty, that's right. If anyone's familiar with Dragon's Milk, the stout that comes out of New Holland. So what this is, they do a bourbon, and then after they take the bourbon out, they put the beer in the barrel.
All right,
and
again, stop. We haven't even started the podcast. What are you drinking? Everyone's on stage here. Let's go. All right. God damn, we're not going to have anything to talk about once we start the audio side. Jesus.
Yeah, but now
I thought we were.
You've been on one or two of these before, Nate.
I was going to say,
yeah, but I'm usually controlling when it goes to audio.
That's right.
I love the Dragon's Milk, so I'm excited to see what's going to happen with the. I might need to have a little nip of that, Nate.
There you go.
Well, the only place you can find it's the Last Call store.
Oh, really? Oh, well, even better because it's
okay, Steve, what are you drinking?
I'll tell you on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's get started here, boys. Anyone that wants to chime in at all on the feed on Facebook, we're also live on YouTube right now. So if you guys want to share that, if anyone's commenting or texting you, like how do I watch this? I don't have Facebook. You can actually go on YouTube right now and watch it live, which is kind of cool. So, all right, Nate, if you want to do the ceremonial start the recording, I can go with that. Welcome back to Bourbon and BS Podcast, episode 111. This is part one. I've got some great guests on tonight. We have one newcomer, Gary Wassmuth. Thank you for joining us, Gary.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I got a returning guest, AJ Kazmierzak. He is a guest / sometimes guest host. I've got Nate Hale on the feed as well. I might have Dustin chime in later. He has been invited to the chat room, but we're not sure. It's kind of like having him in the garage. Sometimes he says something, sometimes he doesn't. So it's all very, very fitting at this point. I want to thank you guys. I want to thank our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, for supplying us with the first cigar through Davidoff, actually. So Dan Burris, the Davidoff rep, was kind enough to donate the Davidoff Yamasa, which we'll get into a little bit, which is fantastic. So Tinderbox, thank you very much. And then also Altadis USA, I gave, Nate has one. Sorry, Gary, I didn't know until today what I was going to do, but the Aging Room Original as the stick, and I'll have to get you guys, both AJ and Gary, the next time I see you. We'll get you that after this whole quarantine's over.
Absolutely.
But, fantastic cigar from Altadis USA, so thank you very much. And then also BS Cigar Company. We have plenty of BS Gold and Silver, which we are now shipping a little bit more now that you cannot come in our store, unfortunately. But the BS Gold and Silver are both smoking very, very well. I've got a couple of them. I see Nate's got one as well. I know AJ and Gary have smoked those also. So thank you, sponsors, very much. Guys, the theme tonight for part two is going to be participation trophies, and I'll kind of tie into that a little bit later, but I kind of want to just get into, we're drinking different stuff. So I have one of my favorite go-tos right now for $35.99 on Ohio shelves, but it's David Nicholson Reserve 100 proof. It's something that I've been enjoying. I know Nate enjoys it as well. We're on the same page, but this is one that I keep calling a sleeper, and it's funny. Nate thinks the same thing, and then Liz's stepdad actually pulled it out of the cabinet the other night when we did that before we were all quarantined. And he's like, have you had this? And I said, dude, that's the next sleeper. And he's like, that's what I was saying. It's just like Henry McKenna was about a year ago. So I think that it's definitely a killer bottle. I wish I could share it with you guys, but hopefully I don't go through it all tonight. AJ, what are you drinking?
So
Speak to me,
tonight,
please.
I actually have a bottle that was actually donated to me by a customer at the ski shop that I work at. Every now and then you get people that come in, and of course topics, shift and you get sidetracked. Not that I've ever gotten sidetracked. And and he actually brought this bottle in for getting him set up with some skis and some snowboards for his kids. And I was absolutely floored. Like I told you guys before we started recording, I've had 2 sips out of it. I love it. It's going to be a staple in my cabinet. Nate and I were talking pricing at 40. You said $49.95, Nate?
$49.99 in Ohio now. It used
Just
to be
recently.
$30.99.
So at $49.95, I probably won't have extra backstocks, but I will, when it runs out, I'll get another bottle. At, the original $31.99, I would absolutely have 2 or 3 backups of it.
Yeah, I have a bottle in my cabinet from at least a year ago that I picked up when it was still that $31 mark.
Smart man.
31. I mean, that was the way to go, I thought, for that bottle.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, when you hit 50, then you're talking about Weller Antique, Angel's Envy. You're only $5 short of Blanton's. I mean, so you're really getting into a premium territory with that $50 price point.
But I mean, dare I say it, I would probably pick. Now, granted, I'm someone I like the Special Reserve more, but I would probably pick the McKenna over the OWA. And maybe it's just because of the fact that I don't like, waiting in line at the liquor stores for just OWA. But I don't know. I mean, both are great, but I probably would pick the McKenna over that.
Over OWA?
Yes. Yeah.
At $50.
At $50, yes. But, we're talking 2 bourbons in that range. And how many bourbons are in that $50 range? You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, now at 28, we're just diving right into the whiskeys here a little bit. But when it was 28 for Old Weller Antique, I definitely
rack it up.
And this was 31. I would pick Old or Weller Old Antique or Antique 107. I would definitely pick that over Henry McKenna at $31.99. I like Weller Antique more, but I like them both. Now at $50, I actually, unless I just want to have one, I would walk by both of them at 50.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
Personally.
And I like what you said about the original pricing, because I'm kind of in that same boat, whereas they're both really, really close to each other.
Yeah.
And, I mean, a $4 difference. Yeah, I probably would pick the OWA over the McKenna.
Mm-hmm. All right, Gary, what are you sipping on?
I'm with the Bullet Bourbon.
Just a regular
pulled this
Bullet?
out, 90 proof, $35 bottle. It's just smooth, and it goes well with the cigar I'm smoking with tonight.
And that's the Yamasa here.
Yeah, it is.
Is the Bullet Bourbon, you said you had Woodford on deck as well, right?
Yeah, I do. I have Woodford Reserve in my decanter here.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
I'll do that with my Corona Vehement.
Of course.
I'm not allowed to say Corona, am I?
You can say it. You can say it.
You're gonna send the community into a panic.
Yeah, really.
Not at all. Not at all. We're 6 feet apart at least right now. Nate, you have. I know we covered it off the air, but on the audio,
I got the New Holland Beer Barrel Bourbon.
Yeah.
Give us the story.
So if anyone's familiar with Dragon's Milk, which is a very heavy stout beer that comes out of New Holland in New Holland, Michigan. So they do the bourbon in the new oak barrels, and then they take it out. They put the Dragon's Milk into those barrels to give it a little bit of age, and then when they pull the beer out, they put the bourbon back in for at least 3 months.
How do they milk those dragons? I've just never been able to figure that out.
How to milk a dragon?
Yes, it's just amazing.
I tell you what, it's almost as difficult as milking an almond, believe it or not.
I don't get either.
You got to do it very carefully. But But no, it's a great bottle. They went through a packaging change a couple years ago. Unfortunately, in the state of Ohio, I believe the only place you can get the beer barrel bourbon now is one of the last call stores in Ohio. It's not something that
Really?
the state of Ohio is going to keep carrying around because that's where I think I got this one. It may have been on the last call tables. It could have been on the regular shelf, but I think I got it off the last call table. And I think on last call, I think it was a $20 bottle, and for $20, it's actually a really good bottle.
Now, I wanna help out all of our friends real quick because my buddy Angelo, which a lot of you know, he threw a fit because he was unaware that the last call store actually changed locations.
True.
It moved.
For those of you that still don't know, it's not on Neal Avenue anymore. It's on Nate Sawmill Road.
This is for the Columbus area. For those of you who aren't in town, by the way.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's at the Giant Eagle. That's at the corner of Sawmill and Bethel, but it's not in the regular liquor department. Like, you have to go find it. It's not by where they keep everything else.
And I will say this: I have found at least 4 off the top of my head sleeper bourbons or ryes at that last call store.
One of those stores, yeah.
Oh,
Killer
absolutely.
Bite.
I've got some killer bottles still in my basement that I've gotten there. I mean, some absolutely fantastic ryes for $10-$12.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Don't be giving away that that Ezra Brooks rye.
So
Why'd you have to go and say it? Damn it!
I just got an Ezra Brooks. What is this? 7-year barrel proof.
Oh, old Ezra 7.
Old Ezra 7. That's it. Yeah. I just got
Have
a
you
bottle of
opened
that.
it yet? Is it good?
I sipped out of another bottle. I have not opened this one, so I was going to actually save it for a podcast. That was a gift from Liz's dad. Actually, he found that in Mount Vernon, Ohio, because he saw it on the one of the top lists, and he's like, "Dude, for whatever, $40, I got to try it." And it's nice what I've had, so I'm interested to have it with you guys when we finally get back in the garage. I do want to go over, Nate. Do you know if we've done David Nicholson? You have a better memory than I do. Have we featured it? I don't think we have.
I'd have to look. I mean, I can check my reports real quick.
I don't think we have because I don't remember this story. So just so I, since I have one here that I know we have, I don't think we've done. But for those that are,
while you're talking,
all right. But David Nicholson, it does have some history there. The reason it's called that is apparently the story goes it was developed by David Nicholson, who was from St. Louis, and he was a grocer back in 1843. And then he sold it just from his general store back in the 1800s there. He says, fast forward to the 50s. This doesn't really make sense. Bad writing here. So at 1843, it says fast forward 50 years to 1853. That's 10 years. So anyways, at some point, Julian Pappy Van Winkle, having joined W.L. Weller, he got involved with the Nicholson brand by distilling and bottling the original 43, in quotes, recipe at the Stitzel distillery in St. Louis. Eventually, it remained in the Van Winkle family until 2000 when this company, Luxco, purchased it. And most of it has been sold in Missouri and Illinois until recently. So that's why I think it's a little bit newer on the scene in the last 4 or 5 years. But I've always really liked it. I think it's got a little bit of spice. And Nate, I don't know if you want to agree or disagree on that one. I know you've had it, but there's some sweet, there's some spice, but it's kind of like sharp, but it's not a lot of heat. It's 100 proof.
it is, but for 100 proof, it's actually surprisingly smooth.
Yeah.
Not a lot of heat on the palate.
No.
It's got just a little bit of spice and sweet. It's very well balanced whiskey, and I think that's what makes it absolutely fantastic. And what we had talked about earlier, it's rare to actually see this come down in price.
Yeah.
Because we thought a year ago this was going to be the next one to blow up.
And it still might.
It still might. It might still win an award, but a year ago we were buying it at $40 a bottle, and now it's $36 a bottle in the state of Ohio. So that's absolutely it. For $36 and regularly available on the shelf, it's absolutely killer bottle that you should have. Because we've never featured it. I did look. We've never featured it, but we had it as the secondary bottle a few weeks ago when Nook was in the garage. The last time we were actually in the garage for an episode.
Right.
I know we've had it as a secondary bottle before that even.
Yeah.
So it's just one that people will walk by and not even give a second thought to, but it's absolutely killer.
Yeah, and it says it's a high rye mash bill.
Oh, now we're talking.
Yeah.
The high rye bourbon.
AJ loves the high rye.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Can
that
you
high
figure out
gold?
what the mash bill is on it?
No, I can't find it, but it does say that there is a flagship weeded. But everything I'm finding online, it says a high rye mash bill, which would make sense if that's accurate. Just because I think some of the flavors you're going to get from it are actually going to bring that up. I mean, it does. That makes sense. I don't know, Nate. Do you agree or disagree on that?
No, I agree. I think if it's got that higher rye, that's probably the reason why we get just a little, some of that spice on the back end. It doesn't hit you up front; it hits you on the back,
Agreed.
which is typical of the rye. You get a little bit more sweetness or floral notes up front with a rye. The spice hits you on the back end. So I know AJ loves the Rabbit Hole High Gold, which is a high rye.
Yep.
That was, I believe, a 25% rye, but we've also done other high ryes that were around 20. So I would definitely put this somewhere around that 20 to 25% rye on the mash bill.
Yeah.
Now, so that was my next question. Was obviously you guys know I'm a big fan of the oomph on the back end of it, and so when you sip it, that feel, is it that sweetness that comes over and then it kind of like creeps up into the nose, or like it's like a standard high rye, or does it have a different kind of feel?
I don't get much in the nose a whole lot, honestly. With this one, it's just it finishes nicely.
Okay.
That's where that warm spice comes into it, in my opinion. But
I agree.
Gary, you're drinking Bullet. We've never featured just the regular Bullet, but I do kind of want to hear. We've never featured it. I think we've I don't know if we featured on the podcast or if it was before when we were doing just Whiskey Wednesdays, but there was a time we had like the Bullet 10. I don't think we featured it at all. But Bullet, you're just at that more or less baseline Bullet bourbon, correct?
Yeah, 90 proof. It's got just a little bit of a spice to it that I like.
Yeah.
And it just, like you said earlier, it finishes really well. I like the Bullet Rye too. The Bullet Rye is just outstanding.
I think the Bullet Rye is, for the price, a very, very good.
It really is. Very good. Yeah.
Now, Gary, so my question to you is, you always hear a lot of people talking about Bullet as being, great in old fashions or whiskey sours or, different cocktails. And
I've had it in the old fashioned, and I really like it in the old fashioned.
I was going to say, now you're drinking it straight right now, though, correct?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so
every once in a while, I'll drop a cube in it too.
Okay, yeah. So do you like it more as a cocktail mixer, or do you like it more straight with a cube, or is it just depending on the day?
Most of the time, I drink it like this. It's just, just a straight. But when I do go for an old fashioned or something, when I'm allowed to go out somewhere, then I usually ask for that when they do an old fashioned for me. So.
Okay, very nice.
All right. Well, sipping on stuff. I mean, this is weird doing this remotely, but I do like it.
It's I tell you what, in terms of the hand that you guys and that Bourbon and BS has been dealt, I think you guys are killing it right now. The fact that you're able to, bring the community together. We're live streaming on Facebook. You said we're live streaming on YouTube as well, and we're still able to get the recording for the actual podcast. I mean, aside from being in the same room, this is the next best thing.
It is, and I think that it does. I mean, we've talked about it. It kind of broadens the capabilities of going forward. Where we're going to go back to. I've mentioned this for those of you watching tonight, and you didn't watch last week. But the idea is to still get back to where there's 2-3 people at the table in the garage, and the way we used to do it, and then possibly if we have to or can have the capability, line someone up and have them in a second window. And I think that's the idea there. So, and we can keep streaming this and have things like, logos. And then if you look at the bottom of the screen, if you guys are listening on the audio, we've kind of changed it up where currently we've just got the one, rolling banner there going across, thanking our sponsors, which I think they would appreciate as well. So definitely it's a bump up as far as the technology there, and you can put anything you want down there. I can say that AJ Just put AJSUX across the bottom there.
How many participants do you have right now? Do you know?
How many what?
How many people that actually have been watching?
Right now, it's been going between 10 and 20-ish.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
16 right now. Hey, guys.
17. So, yeah. But, yeah, so I do want to dive into a little bit. I mean, we're all drinking different stuff, and we talked a little bit about it, but this Davidoff Yamasa. So, Gary, I don't know if you know much about this, or Nate, you know much about this. It's definitely different for a Davidoff. So Davidoff is definitely I would call it a higher end premium, if you want to do the super premium, whatever you guys want to talk about, however you want to call it. But Davidoff is definitely one of the higher echelon as far as price and availability of cigars.
Well, the Davidoffs, from the word go, which was around 1911, they were in Geneva, Switzerland.
Right.
Then they moved in the 1940s into Cuba, and they used to have Davidoff Cuban cigars also. In fact, he used to do the rolling for the what's the cigar that Castro?
Cohiba.
Yeah, the Cohiba. They used to do the rolling for those.
Right.
And then into the 1960s, when Castro really took over, everything started going down. The quality started going down. So in 1990, Zeno Davidoff said, "I'm not doing this anymore. I'm out of here." There's a story out that he actually burned up like a whole crap load of cigars and tobacco because it wasn't to the quality that he wanted. So then he went back to Switzerland and then over to the Dominican Republic because he always kept his hand in the Dominican Republic. When they started going to something besides the Dominican tobacco is when he really started with the Nicaraguan Puro, which is a great cigar. It really is.
When was that?
That was in 2012, 2013.
It wasn't that long ago.
Century. No, Then after that, they had the Escurio, and then they went to the Yamasa, and then on and on. So they started going to a little bit different. But the Yamasa was different because Yamasa come from the Yamasa region in the Dominican Republic, which is harder than hell to,
it's a very
to grow
small
tobacco.
region.
And yeah, it's just really tough to do anything with. So they put that as the wrapper. The binder is from
it's Yamasa as well.
Yeah, but it's San Vicente or something like that in the Dominican, and then they went with Nicaraguan fillers.
San Vicente.
Oh, is it Vicente? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where is the Yamasa region?
I'm sorry?
Where is the Yamasa region in the DR?
Into the center of the island.
Yeah.
So over by like Santiago?
Yeah,
South.
not really sure.
South of Santiago, because that's where LFD is just to the west of Santiago. So
Yeah.
I didn't know in relation where so it's a little further south than that.
Yeah, I pulled it up. I mean, it's interesting, and then I wanted to just comment. They say that it's a swampy area, actually.
Yeah,
It's low pH, high in micronutrients, and it's a very interesting thing where I think it was more or less a challenge for them to do something different that no one else had done.
Exactly. And well, I think that's where you get the darkness of the wrapper.
Yeah.
It's more like a chocolate, but you get that sweetness from that, and then you get a spicy from the Nicaraguan filler that's in it. So it makes it a real interesting smoke. It really does. That and the Escurio are my favorite with them.
And it's interesting you say that. I'm going to bring Dustin in because he's smoking one as well. Let's see if this works here. But
there we go.
What's up, Dustin?
Hey, Dustin.
Dustin, we can't hear you. You got to turn your mic on, buddy.
Oh my goodness. Well, while Dustin's doing that, I gotta say, Gary, I agree with Kevin King. You should have PhD'd in Davidoff history because, I mean, now I want to sit down with you whenever this quarantine's over and just hear more about Davidoff.
Well, I used to work with Gary, and Gary definitely
really
knows Davidoff.
I mean,
Gary knows his stuff, huh?
Zeno Davidoff actually invented the desktop humidor.
Really?
He wanted to make it. He wanted to make something that people could take home with them.
How long ago?
And do that. And that was probably in the 1950s, somewhere in there.
He revolutionized it.
And he had the very first walk-in humidor too in Switzerland.
So So there were no desktops before that?
No. He
what were they doing with them?
He invented, but he was born in 1900, 1906, something like that. So he was an old fart when he died.
Well, yeah.
Well, I think one of the things.
Good for him.
Yeah, really. That's all those cigars.
When you mention that, Gary, not when you mention his name, I think it's something that there's a lot of cigar smokers that may not know it. I know we get a lot of people that come to the shop that don't know it. His name is Zino Davidoff.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people that don't realize Zino, when they see the band, the Zinos, it's the same company as Davidoff.
It sure is.
You get people that are like, oh, you guys don't carry Davidoff? No, we carry Zinos. Like, no, it's the same company. It's a different line, but it's still a high-end Dominican cigar that's absolutely fantastic.
Well, they bought out Camacho. They bought out Camacho 2 years back, and then sold it to someone else at that point. But yeah, they've had their hands in it since the early 1900s.
Yeah. AJ, what do you have?
So here's my question though. You said Zino is the same as Davidoff, right?
Correct.
And
that's his name, Zino Davidoff.
Well,
right.
Same company.
So when people say, is the Zino brand the same quality and consistency as the Davidoff brand?
Yes. In my opinion,
so.
yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I truly believe so.
Now, how does the price differ?
Same for the most part.
So they've got what we consider like they have the Zino Crown series, the silver tubes, platinum.
Platinum.
The platinum are going to be in that. They're going to be higher than most Davidoffs, honestly.
Yeah, you're in a $30 range with them.
The everyday production, they're going to be higher. Now they also have a level that's going to be in that kind of 15 to 20 as well.
Mm-hmm. We carry some of those at the shop.
Yeah.
We had that Zino Z Crown that came in that 3-count box. That was that nice high gloss box that we got 2 Decembers ago. That was $100 stick. Well, we also in the shop now have the Davidoff Royal Release. It's $100 stick.
Yeah.
So
what's
Dustin,
the Yamasa?
Hang on a second. Dustin, can we hear you?
I don't know. Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
There we go.
Dustin's too dark and I'm too light on the video feed.
It's all right.
We only got one light back here right now. Well, there'll be more. Felt bad had to run around and close all the windows.
Oh yeah, for the smoke. I got you.
Yeah.
Dustin, what do you think of the Davidoff? I want to jump back into that since you're the fourth person smoking it tonight.
Well, this is the first Davidoff I've ever had.
Ever.
Oh. Yeah.
Wow.
But I think it's really fantastic. I get a little bit of spice, but it's not a lot. It's actually fairly subtle.
Yeah.
It's got a nice boldness to it, but not something that's overpowering compared to some other cigars that are out there. I think overall it's just really smooth. It smokes really well. Had a little bit of tunneling there for a second, but it's corrected itself. But I think overall it's got a really nice draw, constructed very well. I
love how I can hear the birds in the background.
Yeah, I tried to use my earbuds. It didn't work very well. So
it's all right. Kind of gives a nice ambiance.
Nice little nature for you.
Might like to start laying back here and taking a nap.
But no, overall,
coffee Viking keeps getting up and leaving.
He's had too much coffee. I don't know what's going on. He's taking
I'm trying to
laps over
figure
here.
out this lighting so that way I'm not just a white blob for you guys.
Oh, it's the winter time. You're a little pale. It's all right.
Half a meal between AJ and I.
I think I'm going to go get a spray in the next couple of days.
Yeah, so it's good though that this is your first Davidoff. It's interesting because this is not what Davidoff is known for, in my opinion.
No, it's not.
Davidoff's definitely, I think, more known for a mild to medium, creamy, lighter flavors, a little bit of nuttiness. That's kind of what I think in my opinion, that's what the Davidoff is known for. But I think they have branched off, to your point, Gary, is that, with the Escurio, with the Nicaragua blend, you've got the Yamasa, and now you've got some other stuff that they keep coming out with, the smaller batch stuff. They just did those small batches. Now those are retailing for like $40 to $50, but they've got Habano wrappers. They've got Nicaraguan. They've got all. I mean, they're all over the board. So they've definitely been messing with the ingredients, if you will, of the cigars. And I think this one, it's interesting. You mentioned the Escurio, Gary, and I know you like that one. But both the Escurio and this Yamasa are, in my opinion, extremely, extremely unique flavor profiles.
Well, the Ecuadorian that's in the Escurio is what makes that so different.
But see, that's got
and just a great. I was shocked when they came out with these because, like you said, they're really more of a mild cigar all the way through with their white labels, especially. But they very good cigars. Don't get me wrong; they were high priced also. But that's what Zeno actually said years ago. He said, "Yeah, they cost more, so you just smoke a little bit less.
Yeah,
but you'll enjoy them more."
It's interesting if you can see it. If you can see that on the bottom, so this is the packaging for the 4-packs, and if you see right here, you see the 5 dots. Now this is 4.5 filled up. That's their gauge as far as strength profile.
Yeah.
And so when they're almost full here, this is 4.5 out of 5. I find it interesting because I think with the Yamasa, that scale normally is, I think, a little bit off. It's a little advantageous. A strong cigar for a Davidoff is not a strong cigar. This one is pushing it. Dustin, I'm going to minimize you here, see if we can get rid of that clicking.
Yeah, I think the Escurio is a bit stronger than this cigar.
The which one? The Escurio?
Yeah, I think it's a bit stronger. To me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put this much more than a medium body at all. It's just like all Davidoffs. It's very smooth. It's got a great flavor to it. So it's intense in terms of the flavor,
right? But
the body's not intense, I don't think.
Yeah.
Or the strength of the cigar. It's got a ton of flavor.
It does have a ton of flavor, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. One of our regulars who came in a couple weeks before all this crap went down, he's a big Davidoff guy, loves Davidoffs, and he always buys one that's $27-$30, and he had never tried the Yamasa, and he smoked it, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, this might be my new favorite Davidoff."
Really?
And this is not as expensive, if I recall, as some of the other ones. This is what, $20?
Yeah, it's in that range. I'd say retail. Yeah, I'd say around that. I mean, it's still not an inexpensive cigar, but I mean, it's something that, we were kind enough that Dan Burris, donated, if you will, or afforded us the 4 cigars for the podcast. And, again, I need to get AJ something to smoke here next time he's around the shop in the next, hopefully, 2 weeks.
Yeah, hopefully.
But at $20, I mean, the cheapest Davidoff that we have in the store is that Signature 2000, which is $17.50. So this being $20, I mean, that's absolutely fantastic for the cigar.
I think what I'll say about this cigar is whether you like the profile of Davidoffs, and it's interesting because I'll try to show it. I showed the guys when I went to cut it. It kind of, and maybe it was because it was in my locker at the shop or whatever, but it kind of like it squeezed in a bit, and then it actually cracked it just enough.
Oh, did it?
Forgive my slobber there, but the thing is that I peeled off just a little bit of the cap, and so you can see the binder on it. But Dustin was talking about how his canoed a bit. What I will say, more than any other cigar brand, in my opinion, with Davidoff, you are going to have good construction. They definitely have high-end rollers doing everything. And if you talk to anyone from the company, they're going to say that too. They have very, very high-end rollers, high-level rollers on all of the Davidoff projects. This is not something that, if it's a basic size, you have a lower-end roller. This is the top percentage of their factories rolling these things when it has a Davidoff band on it. And I think, Gary, you've smoked more Davidoffs than I think the other 3 of us, and Dustin included, clearly, since this was his first one. What are your thoughts as far as consistency from the brand? Because I've actually heard other people say otherwise, that they have some bad construction issues every once in a while, but it's not an overwhelming thing.
No, I've never experienced it myself with them, and they'll even, if you can get them to do this, if you talk to Dan, they'll even bring somebody out from the Dominican and bring them in and show you everything that they do from all the way through the process. It's a really good. You could do that next door at the restaurant.
Yeah.
And have a class on it, and it's a fantastic class. But they are always consistent to me. I don't remember anything I've ever had to take back with them in selling these as long as I did.
Yeah.
And it's just been really good. But you do pay a little bit more for them. But when somebody walks into the store and they're looking for, I would take them directly over to that case and show them what you have. You can always go down in price on different things, but keep them up on that to try them out. Because I figure once they do, they'll come back and buy one or two more anyway. And then you got your some people that won't buy anything but.
So I've got whenever you guys get a break, I've got 2 questions for all 3 of you since I'm not smoking it.
Go ahead with your questions, and I'm going to see if I can bring Dustin back in if you can hear him. So Dustin, can we hear you there?
Dustin, you there? All right, I'm asking the question. So my question is,
you guys can hear me, but I can't hear you.
Yeah,
I can hear you now.
Can you hear us, Dustin?
I don't think you can. Yeah, he's gone. Go ahead, AJ, with your question.
Here's for what I did this morning now.
So this cigar specifically, right? Is this a daily smoker or is this a celebratory cigar? You know, like just for example, when I graduated college, I came in and I got the Liga Privada Feral Flying Pig. Okay, is this up in that echelon, or is this more just like, hey, it's a Tuesday, I'm feeling good, just sealed a business deal, I come in and I have this?
Yes.
I'll let the other guys answer this.
Yeah, I would say that it's not an everyday cigar. What are these sticker at, Steve?
20-ish.
Yeah. So right around $20. I mean, you can. I wouldn't, but
take the price out of it. Would it be an everyday smoke for you, Gary?
If I took the price out of it,
say it was $12.
Yeah, in a different size.
Well, no, just say it was this cigar you're smoking. If I say it's $12, same question.
Yes.
It would be a daily smoke for you.
A daily smoke for me.
That's good though. That's good. Nate, what about you?
I smoke a lot of different cigars too daily. So
Avi says that it depends on your financial situation. That's absolutely right.
I can appreciate that.
How well you're doing
that.
Nate, what do you think?
I think this is a cigar that, whether it's an early morning or afternoon cigar, it could be a daily smoker. If $20 is within your ballpark for daily smoking, at $12, yeah, this would be something that I would smoke all the time. Yeah, absolutely. That $20, once you get over $15, that makes it a little bit harder. I think
it's kind of a gray area.
Yeah,
dicey.
But anytime we have someone come into the shop, I think that they're like, yeah, I'm looking for a good gift cigar. It's someone's birthday or an anniversary. Like the Davidoff cabinet, like it's its own cabinet. That's one of the places that we take them to.
Sure.
Oh, you want a celebratory cigar? Here you go. And I start talking about it.
Sure.
And they always end up asking, well, why are these cigars so much more expensive? What are they really worth that additional cost versus some of the other ones? And I always tell them, with the quality construction, the quality of the rollers that they're using, the quality of the tobacco that you're getting, they are absolutely worth the money for the most part. Some people would argue, $100 cigar, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a Davidoff, Zeno, God knows what, $100 isn't worth it. But with what most of our Davidoffs run, which are going to be most of them are $18 to $30 at the store. Right. A couple that are outside of that, but at $18 to $30 a stick, any of those Davidoffs in that range, they're definitely worth the money, especially as a celebration, or maybe not even a celebration. Just, you know what? I've never had one. I want to try one. It's absolutely great line of cigars to get into. This one, being at the lower end of that Davidoff price point, is an absolutely fantastic smoke.
Yeah.
Great.
Like-
So now I have another sidebar question
Hang on.
from your
Dustin.
answer.
I want to ask Dustin here if you
Yeah,
can hear us
yeah.
now, right?
Can you hear us,
Can
Dustin?
you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
What, question
hear you.
was, is this a daily smoke for you, or would it be a
No.
daily smoke for you?
So this would not
Obviously, it's
be
your first one, but
right. I think to Nate's point for the price point, I think it would be a great celebratory cigar. Personally, I would probably still lean towards Padrones.
Padrones.
With
Yeah.
that similar price point, maybe a little bit less. But then again, this is the only one that I've had. So
Sure.
I guess I had a follow-up question about the Davidoffs because
Go
they
ahead.
have one called the Winston Churchill, correct?
Yes,
They
they do.
So did Davidoff make cigars exclusively for Winston Churchill, or was that just
No.
an homage to him?
No, they just
That's a
used
Gary
his name
question.
on that.
For sure.
Hang on, Gary. Go ahead.
Yeah, they just used his name on that.
Yeah, it was an homage.
Winston Churchill actually smoked Romeo and Julietta's.
Oh, okay.
Gary,
They
how
made-
much do you know?
What's
I'm
that?
sorry.
I said, Gary, how much do you know? Because you kind of sound like an encyclopedia, my man.
Well,
I don't
Gary,
know
tell
very
him how
much.
long
I'm on this podcast. I can't know very much. I mean, come on.
Oh, come on.
Gary, how long have you been in the cigar industry? Because I used to work with you.
I've been in the cigar. Well, I was in the cigar industry full time for just 5 years, but
Yeah.
I've been smoking cigars for a good 30 years. So
Yeah.
and
Awesome.
different ones all the way through.
Awesome.
Longer
awesome.
than AJ's been alive, I think.
Hey, only about
Yeah.
5 years.
I wanted to answer real briefly is that this is a and I'm not gonna maybe not selling this one very much. This is one to try because it is so unique in my opinion. This is something that for me, so this is pairing actually fairly well with this David Nicholson Reserve because it does. They both have a bit of a spice to it, but they're different. It's not necessarily battling the other one out. Now I think the David Nicholson for me the Reserve here, it does mute the Yamasa a little bit until I hit the cigar maybe 2-3 times in a row without taking another sip, and then that familiar spice comes out with that. Again, it's a very unique flavor, and I assume it's from that the soil and what they're planting out there. I mean, Davidoff actually is overly they give a very, very detailed explanation on most of their blends, to a point that it's like to the region, to the Seiko, whatever. I mean, they do the opposite of what a lot of different companies do in these days, which is just like Nicaragua, Dominican, or whatever. Like they break it down to a point where you're like, some small village in Dominican Republic is where this wrapper's from.
Yeah,
And you're like, I've never heard of that. You look it up on a map, like Yamasa. It's like they named it after that, and unless you know the country, as far as the geology of it, it's like you have no idea.
no.
You have no idea.
See, and I respect the heck out of that because, and of course, I'm going to relate it back to the coffee industry. But a lot of companies in the coffee industry, when they put out a bag of Guatemalan, okay, they're going to say it's from Guatemala, it's from Huehuetenango, it's from this mountain peak at this elevation, because of the fact that they are so proud of that product. And I would imagine that that's why Davidoff is doing this, is because of the fact they're like, hey, this region, this village, this, crop is just so amazing and consistent. We want you to know everything about it. And I respect the heck out of that.
Yeah.
Well, I also think Davidoff's one of those where they'll tell you exactly what's in the cigar, almost to be like, yeah, you want to do that? Go right ahead. You want to try doing that? Go right ahead. See if anyone buys it with your name on it, because people will buy it with the Davidoff label. See if they buy it. See, you can make the exact same cigar. See if they buy it with your label on it.
Well,
For the
So
same
that's my
price
next
point.
question.
hang on before you answer that or ask that question. Like that's the difference between the price point of like say Padron and Davidoff. I'll say this is that Padron has their unique 64 anniversary, the 1926 series. They have even the one-offs of those two blends, right? They are extremely vague. They're on the other side of it. They're just like, no, we're going to smoke it because it's very, very good and it's all Nicaraguan and we grow it or we might not grow it. Like it's just like they're just like, okay, people just buy it all day long. Davidoff goes the other route. It's like for this price point or for what you're getting, it's almost like a high-end sports car that it's not just like, let me get the keys. Let's see how it feels on the road. No, it's going to be like all the the brochure is like what the salesman's going to tell you. It's this many horsepower. It's this much torque. It's this, measurements. It's, it's not just leather interior. It's like some sort of Corinthian, leather that was actually from, virgin calves and, like all this shit. Like they're just going to like go all like 100%.
Hand stitched.
That's good leather, Bob.
Yeah. Hand stitched by, the top seamstress in this Yamasa region, basically. Or Yamasa.
I mean, the consistency for both of them is just fabulous. I mean, the Padrones or the Davidoffs, but the Davidoff will come out and tell you exactly what's going on, where it's from, how old the tobacco is, and nothing with them is less than 5 years. They just won't do it.
Right.
So they just stay with it, and they tell you it's a high price cigar. They tell you.
Well, it's just like with a lot of whiskeys, they're sitting on it for 5 years at least before they make it into a cigar and sell it.
Sure.
Same thing with a whiskey. If it, there's a big difference typically in a $4 or 4-year bourbon and a 10-year bourbon because they're sitting on it. There's additional expenses from sitting on it for so long.
Right.
So you expect because of that age, because of the quality, you expect that higher price point, but you also expect that higher price point to be worth it. Same thing with whiskeys. If you're paying that higher price for something that's aged longer, you're expecting it. Like you're drinking, Gary, you're drinking the Bullet. AJ's drinking the Henry McKenna 10-year bottled and bond. You expect those two to taste differently. They're at two different price points. Same thing with, I think, the Yamasa or the Aging Room. Different years, different name. I mean, there's a lot of difference going on, but you expect that price point to mean something.
We can go on. AJ, what's your second question, if you will? Because I agree with you, Nate and Gary, both.
So I kind of extended it, and I don't really know if this question has ever been asked, but okay, this smoke is $20 at the shop, correct?
Yeah,
correct.
Ballpark, yeah. Okay.
Put a dollar amount on how much are you paying for the Davidoff name? Is it $1 and the rest is $19 worth of quality? Is it $5 and the rest is $15 worth of quality? And this is just me prodding for my own information because honestly, the way you guys are talking about it, when this quarantine's done, I'm gonna come in and buy that cigar and try it.
Perfect.
And so, put a dollar amount on how much you're paying for the Davidoff name with this specific cigar.
So what I'll let me jump in on this one is because I'm going to take it back to the metaphor of a high-end sports car, right? Like, I mean, anymore, you can buy, and there's nothing wrong with any of the things I'm going to say right now, but you can buy a Kia or Nissan that has as much almost technology as a Mercedes or a high-end like Lexus. I want to say Davidoff looks at themselves. They put out it. They're not even Lexus. They're not Audi. They're not Mercedes. They are in the exotics. They are now pushing like Maserati. They are handcrafted Aston Martin. This is, if you're smoking a Davidoff, it's almost like you're getting a glimpse of the high life, if you will.
Silver Streak Rolls Royce.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you're going to get, any of those cars, it's going to cost more to maintain them, but they are going to have problems, right? They're going to have the same kind of problems, if not be less reliable than some of like I mentioned, like the Kias, the Nissans, and everything else. All cars are going to have problems depending on how long you drive them and everything else, right? But it's the experience of driving that car. With this, I'll say the one thing with Davidoff that I think is different than that metaphor is that typically, yes, you might have one that's going to canoe. You have one that's going to have a construction issue, but there's a very, very high probability that this cigar will smoke like a cigar is supposed to. And so when you have that, I'm still the same guy that if I pay $12 for a cigar and it cracks, or if it's canoeing or tunneling and it's just a bad experience, I'm disappointed. I mean, it's $12 is $12. It doesn't matter if I'm paying 20 or 12. I still want to have that cigar. If I pay like $2 for a cigar and it busts or it smokes poorly, that's different. That's like buying a used car for $1,500 and all of a sudden you got to put $2,000 into it. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at that.
So, and Nate and Gary, I want to hear from you guys. But Steve, what you're basically saying is you're not necessarily paying for the name with this cigar. You're paying for the fact that it is such a monumentally lower percentage of any issues happening, and it's a monumentally higher percentage of getting a consistent good smoke every single time you buy it.
You're paying for quality. You're paying for quality.
Okay. You pay for quality, but people buy for different reasons. People buy for different reasons, in a sense that a Davidoff smoker, and I'm not going to try to generalize this, but let's say,
stereotype.
Huh?
I said don't stereotype.
No, I'm just saying. So if someone smokes Davidoffs all the time and they have the means to do that, based on what Avi said, right? He's like, It depends on your situation. So there's different people, and it doesn't matter necessarily if you're smoking a Davidoff all the time and you're running up your credit card or you're just paying cash. It doesn't matter. But I think it's different for everyone. If you like the flavor and you can afford it and you're pleased with the consistency, these are the same people that drive high-end cars, to stick with that metaphor. But they're not necessarily the one that parks it at valet and makes sure they put it up front so everyone can see them get into their Rolls Royce or anything like that. They're literally just like, I just don't want it near anything because I don't want a door ding in my Rolls Royce or whatever it is. I don't want a door ding in my car. Same thing. That's where I go back to the $12 cigar. With this one, though, you do pay for the name. There is it's kind of a give and take there, but the name has the reputation, like Gary's saying, is that you pay for that experience. You pay for the high quality. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Davidoff smokers will, and they leave the band on.
That was another thing. But
I know other Davidoff smokers that literally take the band off and they are not smoking it to show off. They truly enjoy it. They're
I actually got to smoke I think it was a 1940 some Cuban Davidoff.
Yeah.
And oh my God, was it good? And it should have been, but it was just outstanding. You just can't find them. But a friend of mine from New York brought one down to the islands one time, and it was just outstanding. And again, the quality was there. It burnt just great. I mean, it just all the way through. Avi made mention of the Nicaraguan Diadema. That they have. That's an outstanding cigar too. It's a good choice on that.
Gary, there's a phrase for that. It's called "they don't make them like they used to."
Oh yeah, I actually think they're making them better. It's just that thing was aged so long. I mean, that's older than me, and that's hard to get. So,
I was gonna say, do you smoke that as a kid or when it first came out? I gotta do it.
Me or something like that.
Hey, we're crossing generations with this podcast tonight.
That's right. And Nate, I saw your private chat right there. He called me out when I said geology. I was in the middle of talking. And yes, you're right. Geography. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. This quarantine's taking a heavy toll on Steve.
It's taking a heavy toll on my whiskey collection here.
No, I think with Davidoff, you're paying a little bit for the name, but also, in the industry, if you want to be a cigar rep, I think Davidoff is one of those companies that people want to work for. Like, if you can land a rep job working for Davidoff, like, you've hit top of the shelf in terms of that career path. If you want to be a roller, if you live in the Dominican Republic and you want to be a roller, Davidoff is one of those companies that you want to roll for, because they do have a tendency to take good care of the people. They know they have a high-end product, and it takes a certain type of person to make a high-end product. It takes a certain type of person to sell a high-end product.
That's right.
So they're really looking for the cream of the crop in both the manufacturing and the selling side of it. And if you're getting the cream of crop roller, you're gonna have to pay a little bit more for it. If you want to use cream of the crop tobacco, no pun intended, you have to pay a little bit more for it. If you want to, have top of the line sellers, someone who can sit there and sell thousands upon thousands of dollars with Davidoffs, like, you have to have the right type of person. When I used to be on the road, there were accounts that I had that were Davidoff accounts, and Davidoff limits how many shops in an area can carry their cigars.
Yeah.
And you have to carry a certain amount of the product too.
Depending on what type. Yeah, depending on what type of account you are, whether you're an account that has them in humidor, or whether you're like Tinderbox, where you're a bar account and you have that single display case, or you have the next one up, the double display case. You have to carry so many cigars. And when I was on the road 6-7 years ago, at that time, if there was an opening and you wanted your store to be the Davidoff or the second Davidoff distributor in that city, you had to bring in at minimum 100 facings, your first order. Right. Minimum 100 facings, and your order had to be at least $25,000. That's a shit ton of money.
Hang on. With that being said, though, Nate, that they do now include Avo, Baccarat, Camacho, and other lines.
They do now.
Do that.
Yes.
So it is a big investment, but part of that investment, by the way, is the actual humidor itself. Now I will let you guys know, like, even with being a bar account, they give you a deal on our stand-up humidor.
But you buy everything.
You got to buy everything. I remember when that humidor came in, and we're like, damn, this is nice. And then you look at the packing slip, and then with that packing slip is also an invoice. And you're like, thank you for letting us buy your humidor.
Yeah, well, the accounts. The accounts that wanted them, say you were going to be in a walk-in humidor, or say like with the Tinderbox, it was going to be on the shelf of the humidor. Not only did you have to, 100 facings, $25,000, they told you where you had to put those cigars. You couldn't just put them anywhere. Right. They came into your store and said, our cigars are going to go right here. You're going to have to kick those people out and move them somewhere else. I don't care where else. Our cigars will go right here.
No, and then you also have to keep them in order, their order too.
Yes.
Yamasa, the Nicaraguan, the Espurio, all in order. Well, I don't know how much they did with you, but that's the way they used to be. So,
yeah. Well, go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and part of the reason for that is, like I said, Davidoff limits who can carry their cigars. How many cigar shops in the city can carry their product? And if you don't want it, if you don't want to play ball by their rules, they'll go to the next person in line. There's someone else probably waiting in line to carry their cigars because they can be the only one carrying them. Think of it, if the BS, if you want a BS, there's one place you go to get a BS.
Yeah. We're very selective.
Yeah. But no, it kind of that same thing. Like if you don't want it, someone else does. And anyone who wants Davidoff is going to go to that store, not yours.
The difference, though, is with Davidoff, for example, it's not everyone can take on that, what you're talking about. For us at our location for Tinderbox at Easton, Dan Burris had wanted to come, like, somehow figure it out. I mean, we're 3 doors down from a fully booked Hilton up until 2 weeks ago. But I mean, for 15 to 20 years, we've got high-end retail, we've got Hilton and countless other hotels right nearby that when people come in, they ask for Davidoff at times. I mean, it's just a traffic thing in our location. So they, he had tried to figure it out for some time, and there are already 2 accounts in town. Now, when things changed with those 2 accounts, that's why we went the bar account, because it wasn't quite as selective as far as he didn't come in and say, oh, you got to put it here. You got to put it here. He just said, here it is. Put it wherever you guys want.
That's good.
Well, yeah, we went with the top sellers. We went with, the hot ones that people asked for. and we've slowly creeped into it. Like we were able to get 5 boxes of the Year of the Rat. We've got the small batch. I mean, we had that royal release, but there are some things like the Chef's Edition that we have never brought in because we're just not as high traffic for Davidoff. But it's a thing that you wanted to have it. So, I don't know, Gary, if you know that story, but when we were looking at where to put the humidor, it was like you look at where different points. We have not a very small, but not a very big store, but we put it right next to the register. And I called it from the very beginning that is the most expensive pack of gum that anyone's going to buy as they're ringing out.
It sure is.
and I'm not kidding. I am kidding, but it has worked. I mean, the best time is holidays that are coming by, like Father's Day, Christmas, those types of things where literally they've already bought cigars and then they're standing there waiting to ring out and they're buying for someone else. And they're just like, oh, what's this case over here? It looks pretty. And we're like, oh, Davidoff? Yeah, those are the high, like really high end, all that stuff. And how much are those? And they're like, they're between $20 and $30. And they're like, oh, are they good? Yeah, they're very good. Well, let me get one of those too. I mean, it's
sure.
It's one of those reasons why you put those at the cash registers of the grocery store, as far as the packs of gum and everything else. People just standing there in line waiting. They're like, you know what? I do need some Tic Tacs. Yeah. I do need,
I want to hurt you.
I need $100 cigar.
It's funny you say that, Steve. You know who the first company was to realize the value of putting their product right by the register?
Wrigley.
Yes.
Was it?
Yes, it was Wrigley.
Damn.
Good get.
You should get that just because you're a Cubs fan.
That's right. Pulled that out of nowhere.
Yeah,
I'm gonna sign off. I can't beat that. I got to sign off, guys. You carry it home.
Wrigley was the first person. Like, you know what? We want to put our gum.
Mic drop.
All of our. No, don't you dare drop that mic. No, yeah, they were the first one. Like, yeah, we're going to put our stuff right there by the register because, like you said, everyone goes by the registers.
They do.
Not everyone goes down every single aisle. Not everyone goes down the candy aisle.
No.
But, especially parents with kids, they want to avoid that aisle, but you have to go to the register. And that's why right there at the register, not only are they going to have everything right there, sometimes you'll pay more because it's right by the register than if you got it off the shelf in the aisle.
Well, to your point, I mean, the kids are right there too. They're the ones always grabbing for candy and gum and all that shit, right? I mean, that's.
And once they grab it and put it on the conveyor belt, like it's the parents like, no, I can't. It's like it's already right there.
Yeah, but kids aren't right there. They grab 3 things hoping for one. They grab 3 things off of that, and then the parents like, no, okay, all right, fine, pick one.
You can have that. You can
pick one.
They started high. Their target was low. They started high, somewhere in the middle.
Much like Barry said about starting with Davidoff's.
I take full offense to this because of the fact that I still do this.
Yeah, I knew you were going with
that. Does Ellie let you buy the gum?
No, usually we're fighting over Monster. She's sliding a white Monster on. That's just kind of how it goes.
You guys are so cute, it makes me puke.
It's true love when you buy each other Monsters.
I guess it's a different age bracket for me there.
Hey, can I throw a quick plug to the Tinderbox real quick?
I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah.
So again, you're gonna have to explain all this, but I'm smoking on the Rocky Patel Special Edition. Right. Obviously, smoking it down to the where's it at? You can't see it; it's too bright. But
so many lumens.
Where's it at? Rocky Patel Special Edition, and I highly recommend everybody go and pick up this cigar. Honestly, I bought it on the limited factor because of the fact that you guys don't normally have it. What is retail for this cigar?
Depending on the size, you're looking at like 12 to 14.
Okay,
I think the Robusto is $11.95.
What's that?
Say that again.
I think the Robusto is $11.95.
You're selling for like $11.95, $13.95. I want to say for stores that normally carry it, like Burn Lounges and stuff like that. Well, I can't speak to Burn Lounges, but I mean other stores. I mean the retail is not extraordinarily high. It's right in line with some of their other stuff. It's maybe a tick above like the Decade and such, but it's not anything crazy.
So here's something that surprised me with this that I haven't noticed with other cigars, and it was just very noticeable with this. Amazingly smooth, and it smoked faster than its size. Does that make sense?
That's like a bad thing, though.
But
No?
I mean, the draw was fantastic. The smoke that I got from it was amazing. It's burning perfectly the entire time. I haven't had to go back and light an edge or anything like that. So yeah, that's my plug. Everyone go see the Tinderbox. Are you guys still shipping or doing anything like that?
Yeah. So during this period with COVID, we're shipping a bit more. Now we're not going to go crazy and go to the post office every day because we are still small, but we are, like I said in the email and the post, is that we're not Amazon, but we're going to try to go at least once this week, probably Friday. So if you guys are listening, you want to order something, BS gold or silver, or even like the Rocky Patel special edition, anything that we have, just email eastontinderbox@gmail.com. And then I will respond to you within a one business day, and we'll try to get it out the next time we're doing it. And we appreciate all the support for sure. And already
go support local businesses. These guys have taken care of us for so long. Obviously, Steve's not paying me for this, although he should. But yes, email these guys, get you some cigars. I'm actually going to light up the BS Gold next.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I'd love to ship out, and we've had some good response for the BS Gold and Silver, is that it's something that, it's a sponsor of ours, and it's something that I'm involved in, and all of us actually in the Tinderbox family kind of are involved in one way or another just because of the support. But I would be happy to ship out to anyone I can. It's funny because we are all creatures of habit, and even last week we were carry out only. And Gary, you know this for a fact, is that you come in just to grab some cigars, and the next thing you know, you're like in the middle of a conversation. It's like no one really realizes it until someone like Brian or I or someone else is like, guys, it's carry out only. And I'm like, hey, it's actually a nice day today. Yeah. Why don't you guys go find out how nice it is through the door?
Hey, don't be so personable, and we wouldn't have this issue.
Well, I think it's just everyone likes that community, and everyone's struggling with it right now. I mean, again, I don't want to get on the COVID thing again today, but I mean, that is absolutely part of it. That's why we're doing, I wanted to make sure that this, at least on Wednesday nights, are still happening, because, whether or not it's our podcast or our video feed or something else. I mean, I've been getting requests basically almost every night to see if I'm out in the garage smoking a cigar, and if I want to do like a remote herf or a remote smoke, as people call it. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, I saw something come across last night where somebody asked for that.
Yeah.
That was Kyle.
Yeah, and I encourage everyone to work with that. I mean, we got the Bourbon and BS community page. I think that's something that you guys can do, anything that you're involved with. I mean, Liz, my girlfriend, is on video chat with her parents and her friends a lot. I've been doing it, out here in the garage, smoking cigars and trying to, almost business as usual on everyday life. It's just we're not next to each other. We're not getting together. So it's interesting. But I appreciate that, AJ. That's fantastic.
Hey, I mean, I've been going to you guys since I was 18 years old, and
when it was legal.
Yeah, when it was legal. True. Let's just say there's a reason that I only go to you guys.
I appreciate that.
Not a problem. It's not because of you.
I know people buy from people you like, and a lot of people like Brian.
I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. For the first time, you're not saying anything. That's perfect. Thank you.
Love it.
Nate, what'd you say?
So I want to give a shout out, of course, to Dan Burris for giving us these for tonight. The Davidoffs are not something that we've ever featured on the podcast, because those are something that are a little higher end than what we typically pick for the podcast because of the price point, and Brian being as gracious as he is in sponsoring the podcast. 4 cigars every week, 52 weeks. That's a lot of cigars,
right?
That he's just giving out. So the Davidoff is not something that normally we would be able to do. Is there some cigar that I know we're only shipping right now, but is there going to be some cigar that we might have as a special for the next week, just via shipping?
If you mention, now here's what I can do is if you mention, so we're going to do, obviously the normal thing, 10 or more cigars, it's 10% off. But if you mention the Bourbon and BS podcast, we will do free standard shipping. So
Okay.
we'll eat the cost of shipping, which is, between the actual shipping and the boxes and supplies and our time. I mean, it's going to be worth your while. So mention the Bourbon and BS podcast. We'll do some free shipping in between now and the time we reopen at the Tinderbox at Easton.
On any cigar or the featured cigar?
Any cigar, any 5 or more that we're shipping out. I mean, we're doing a high end one. I can't do 15% off. It's a contract cigar on Davidoff. So what I will say, again, if you mention the Bourbon BS podcast between now and the next episode, let's do that. So next Wednesday, we will do free shipping, and it's standard shipping only. Again, we're not Amazon Prime. We can't do 2-day or next day or anything like that. But yeah, I'd be happy to do free shipping if you mention the Bourbon and BS podcast. Yeah, absolutely. Between now and next Wednesday.
I was going to say,
this is a great time with everything going on to definitely support your brick and mortar cigar shop. Quit buying online and see if your local brick and mortar is doing carry out or doing shipping. This is the time that your local brick and mortar shop really needs the support of the community. And that's what we have here is a community.
Absolutely.
So this is a great time for you guys to help out everyone that's involved in it.
All right. So what you guys are drinking, let's do a quick summary here for part 1. All right. So what you guys are drinking, I'm going to do David Nicholson Reserve out of 10. Price, value, and my opinion of the bottle, I'm going to be 9 out of 10 for the David Nicholson. I mean, I love this bottle.
You're throwing that out there.
For $35, this is again, I think this is a sleeper. Not necessarily the most complex whiskey or bourbon, but it is. Every time I buy it, I'm not disappointed. And I think for $35 anymore in this day and age, this is something that people will you either like it or don't. But it's more often that I think people are going to enjoy this bottle of David Nicholson Reserve. So check it out, 100 proof, $35 right now in the state of Ohio. I assume it hasn't gone up. I think maybe $35, $40 depending on what state you're in. Gary with the Bullet Bourbon for the first part. What do you think out of 10?
I think it's a good 8 anyway.
Wow.
Again, it finishes right, and the price to me is right.
Yeah.
So it's a little more than you want to spend, but still, you know what you're going to get every time.
Yeah. AJ. Henry McKenna at $49.95.
So Henry McKenna, $49.95. I'm gonna go 7.5. And the reason I watched too many Barstool Sports pizza reviews.
Okay.
And so I've started gauging my 1 out of 10 off of that. So I'm going 7.5. Okay. So this bottle here, it's a rich drink. It has a great flavor to it.
What's the proof on that?
That 7.5 says make sure you have one in stock.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a bottle you need to have 3 or 4 of.
Okay.
It's a bottled and bond.
Yeah, 100 proof.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Henry McKenna, it's bottled and bond. It's 100 proof. It is aged 10 years. And I will say this for it as well. Once again, I know that I'm super, super bright, but if you can see it, it is a very
You're not that smart.
It's a very deep, rich bourbon. Like I told you guys at the beginning, it's something I will always have in my bar. It's not necessarily something I will have 2 or 3 of in my bar.
Yeah. Fair. Nate, with your New Holland.
With the New Holland beer barrel bourbon, I think on the shelf, it's when it was on the shelf, if it still is, it was a $30 bottle.
Yeah. And
at 80 proof, I think I would probably give it a 7 at that point.
Okay.
Because if you like Dragon's Milk, if you like that rich, stout kind of flavor, you do pick up a little bit on that. It's got some of that almost like those coffee notes that you get in a stout. It's a really great bottle. If it is at the last call, I think it's probably a $15 to $20 bottle. So move that number from a 7 to an 8, maybe 8.5, just because then it's an additional value, because it's still a great whiskey, regardless of whether it's $15, $20, or $30. It really is a great whiskey. And they're not one of those big giant companies that's owned by a conglomerate. It's in Holland, Michigan, all the way on the west coast of Michigan. Great little town, great little brewery to go to. I know
was gonna say, they
Nook
make
absolutely
great beer.
Yeah.
They do make great beer. Nook absolutely loves that place. We've actually talked about in the past about potentially doing a road trip to
Let's
go
do
to New
We're
Holland
working
and
on
do
it,
a
yeah.
podcast. I mean, so it's definitely something that we're working on. Obviously, with us doing podcasts during the week, it may be a different time podcast or
That'd be a
something where we
special
got to take days off. Yeah, or take days off, because if you think about it, you'd have to have Steve, and then whoever the guest would probably be Nook. I'm just
Yeah,
going to
they'd
go
be
out
up
on
there.
a
We'd
limb
do
and
it.
say
We'd do it
Nook.
up there. Yeah.
But then you'd have either me or Dustin, someone to help Steve with all the production, the video, the recording, the sound, all that stuff. So for those of us, for us to actually be able to go up there to do something like that, that's where sponsorship from our patrons and from our viewers would really come in handy.
Absolutely.
To be able to pay for the gas, the hotel, the meals, for us to be able to do something like that. But it would also provide an insight to the community to be able to do something there, kind of behind the scenes, and make it something special.
No, that's a good thought. And I will say, check out, what was it, 109 when we had Nook and Nate on, right?
Not me, Nate Blurry.
Nate Blur, yeah, absolutely. With the cigar, we talked about it a lot. So briefly, Nate and Gary first, 9 or out of 10. What do you got on this?
Oh, it's a 10 to me.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I like the Yamasa. I really do.
Excellent.
I pick quite a few of them to be a 10. This was only, I think the highest ranking they got with the Yamasa was like a 90 or a 91.
It wasn't very high compared to other cigars out there.
Exactly. But I like I like the consistency. I like the sweetness with the spice also. So yeah, I would pick it as a 10.
Now,
Nate, hang on, Nate.
Sorry.
I would put this cigar, for me, I'd put it about a 9 because it's an absolutely fantastic cigar. I think for $20 or so, depend on what your palate is. For what my palate is, for $20, I can find something that may be a little richer, have a little bit more body, a little bit more flavor, and come in at a little bit lower cost point. For instance, I could spend $16, $17, $18 on maybe a Liga 9 or a T52, or spend $10 on a BS Gold and enjoy. I'm serious. I mean, the BS Gold for me, that's an everyday smoke. That's a $9, $10, $11 smoke, depending on the size. That's an everyday type smoke. Again, every time we talk about daily smokes, price point does come into consideration. A $9 to $11 cigar is more easily to be someone's daily smoke than a $20 cigar. Unless you're just absolutely killing it out there, which congratulations to you if you are. If you can smoke a Davidoff Yamasa as your daily smoke, kudos to you. It's an absolutely great cigar.
Keep up
Whether
the good
it's
work.
$20, $25, $15, it's an absolutely fantastic cigar, and I think it's worth the money.
I'm gonna say 8. Not because like when I'm looking, like Gary, you mentioned like the out of 100 what people actually rate and all that stuff. I'm not gonna break it down. Construction's up there. Like even with my, a little bit of a break in the cap, it's smoked beautifully. It's perfect draw, perfect burn, all that stuff. But there's such a uniqueness to this, and I think that's why that I don't think it's ever gotten maybe more than 90, 91, because there is such a uniqueness to it. It's not an every person smoke. I think it's something, when I say it's a unique, that's why it's not a daily smoke for me. I would give it an 8, 8.5 or whatever, because it's very, very good if you like it. And there's a lot of bourbons and whiskeys out there as well, I think, that would fall into that category that I think is I really, really enjoy it. And you talk to someone else and they're like, yeah, I didn't really care for it. This cigar is not going to hit everyone, in my opinion. So I would give it, I'd call it 8.5.
See, so that cigar needs to be in the coffee industry, because in the coffee industry, we award uniqueness.
Yeah. Which I think you should. I think I'm not talking down on
Right.
the cigar for 8.5. That's why I tried to clarify is that it's
still
not.
up there.
It's not a 5. It's not a 6. I mean, it's up there. But for me, it's not a 10 out of 10. It's not a 9 out of 10 because it's something that I've really enjoyed smoking tonight. But tomorrow, if price wasn't an object, this is not one that I would go back to on a daily basis. This is one that I would go back to a couple 3 months later and be like, oh, you know what I haven't had in a while is a Yamasa. What am I going to drink tonight with it? And I'm going to pair it with something. But in regular afternoon, this is not one that I want to. Have. Basically, I don't want to have that flavor on a daily basis or regular basis.
So, last small question for the Yamasa.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it a cigar that, someone comes in, hey, buddy's celebrating a birthday, it's New Year's, whatever it may be. Let's say they smoke a cigar once a month and that's it. Okay. Are they going to be able to appreciate the quality that's going into this cigar?
I would go Davidoff Nicaragua probably at that point.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Or the Escurio.
Or Escurio. But again, I think Escurio, you're flirting with the Yamasa. My same sentiments on that.
Yeah.
If they're a once a month cigar smoker, I might point them towards a Grand Cru or Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Yamasa, it's still smooth, medium body for me. So I think it's something that you could recommend. The Yamasa would be one where I might recommend the Grand Cru first. And that's, I think, a $27, $28 cigar.
Not quite.
And if they're like, well, I want a bit lower, okay, then try the Yamasa. That's about a $20 smoke. So
right.
a few bucks less, but it's a richer, more complex smoke. So if there's someone who is a once a month cigar smoker, I don't know if they're going to have the palate to really appreciate the complexity of this cigar and what makes this cigar so different from the rest of the Davidoffs, where the tobacco is coming more from the eastern side of the island. That and those blends tend to be just a little bit more on the mild side. This one, he said the filler's Nicaraguan, so it's going to have a little bit more body, a little bit more spice, a little bit more complexity to it than, say, the Signature series or the Zeno Platinums that we have in the store. It's going to be a little bit different. So a once a month cigar smoker, maybe not. Someone who's a regular cigar smoker, definitely something to recommend. Just like what Gary said with also the Escurio.
I think this is one that it depends on what you ate before. It depends what you're drinking. This is, again, when I talk about the uniqueness, it's not a unique in a bad way. This is a uniqueness that you don't pair with. This does not pair with everything, in my opinion.
No.
So if you had like spicy food, or you had certain drinks, a salty drink like a martini, like a dirty martini or something like that before, I don't think this would bode well for you. So this is one that you want to dive down as a person that's recommending a cigar. I want to dive down a little bit more on your scenario, AJ. What else are you guys doing tonight? Where are you eating? What are you drinking tonight? You know what I mean? And
okay.
I'm going to qualify it with this cigar. Some of the ones that Nate had mentioned. Now that's where you give a little bit broader range. That's why I said Nicaragua, because it's medium body. It's got a little bit more body to it. It's got great flavor, but I think it's a more universal pairing. So the once a month or whatever, you might get a little bit more than you're used to, but it's not going to be overpowering. It doesn't have any like uniqueness in a sense like this one does. So if you guys are good on this part, I want to say part one. Thank you to our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, for the Davidoff Yamasa. We've obviously enjoyed it. AJ, I'm sorry we couldn't hook up to get you one of those today, but I appreciate you being a part of it.
It gives me something to look forward to.
Absolutely. Altadis USA for the Aging Room Original, which I'm going to be lighting up next for the second part. Thank you very much for the support. As soon as we get back to all this stuff, they've made some of this possible between adding, this StreamYard that we're doing as far as the way we're doing this. It's not free to do it at this level. So all of those sponsorship dollars from Altadis, as well as Patreon, that helps out a lot. BS Cigar Company, check us out. We are shipping right now BS Gold and Silver, and also some other great cigars as well. Just get a hold of us at eastontinderbox@gmail.com, and we'll work from that. And then also, like I mentioned, the Patreon page is the patreon.com Bourbon and BS podcast. And that is a way for you guys, as you are listening, to do a monthly. I know things are tight for a lot of people right now, but $1, $5, $20, whatever you guys want to contribute. I was working. I had gotten the prototype for the first T-shirt for any patrons. Obviously, that's on hold as the gentleman that I'm using here in the Columbus area and I are not allowed to do that at the moment, as far as hooking up and doing that stuff. But I am working on it, and I've already got some shirt sizes from the patrons that are currently on there. So you have, let's say, 2 more weeks to chime in on the Patreon page at any level, $5 or more, and I'm going to hook you up with one of those T-shirts, and it says, pour one more, light up another, we'll figure this out together, with the logo on the back. I love the shirt, and I've had good feedback on it. Guys, thank you very much. Part 1, we're going to kind of roll through this. We're going to end this part of it, but thank you for tuning in. Check out Part 2, where we're going to talk about participation trophies. Tune in to Part 2, and then also next week. Thank you guys very much. If you're on the feed, stay tuned, stay live with us, and share it, like it, review us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, which is also live, Facebook. Share it all. If you think that you or anyone else, like that your friends, family, want to tune into this on a weekly basis or at their leisure on any of those platforms, please, please, please share it and tell them about it. Guys, thank you very much. Cheers. Hold them up. Virtual clinky. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll hit it. All right. Hey, Gary, do me a favor. Will you do you feel comfortable logging off and logging back in? Because your quality is definitely down, and I want to see if I can get you back at a higher quality for Part 2.
Yeah. Use the same
link.
Okay.
Yeah,
same
the
as
second one. Yeah, the last one I sent you.
All right. Let me
Hey,
see.
were all those questions okay?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm so nosy, and I want to learn so much about this Yamasa.
No, I'm glad you had the questions, man. I'm sorry again, we didn't hook up.
You know me. I'm not too worried about it. I know we're going to link up as soon as this quarantine's over.
Absolutely. So I'm going to wait for Gary to now he's off. He's going to come back on. You guys doing
Steve, I can't wait to get back in the garage, because I know with you doing the StreamYard and that stuff, it's an additional expense on your part. And yeah, I want to be able to help out more. And I got like 8 bottles at least that I want to do for the podcast.
Well, I appreciate that, man.
So I'm looking forward to getting back in the garage.
Oh, I'm bringing bottles.
Normals. Well, I want to get back to doing it normal, so that way I can provide some bottles to give your whiskey budget a little bit of a break.
All right.
Since you're spending extra money doing all this stuff.
I haven't yet, man. I appreciate that. I haven't yet, but this is to the point right now where I think next week, no matter what, I think even if I get like a $30, $40 bottle, I might actually expense it on that Altadis sponsorship just to alleviate it a little bit. Honest, I mean, that's just where we're at. You know what I mean?
No. Sign AJ up for next week's bottle. Call it right now. Sign me up for next week's bottle. I'm serious.
You can't be.
Well, we got to.
No, I can't be here, but I can provide it.
Are you going to provide one to me too, AJ?
Fuck off.
Well, there you have it.
No, we're still live on the live Facebook, aren't we?
We're still live. Yeah, absolutely. This is in between the audio, so
love it.
The nice thing about this, if anyone's out there wanting to do their own podcast, I've learned a lot with this thing, and it's kind of cool. But I'd be happy to tell you guys how to do it. But Gary, you're back. You look like you're a little bit better quality this time.
I can only look so good, so I mean I understand.
No, it's probably best that you're a little blurry. Yeah, no, I understand.
I think we're better with Gary blurry.
In case anyone was wondering, that's the best I've ever lit a cigar with a match. Definitely not a match guy. It must be. Hey, you know what? It must be the cigar.
Absolutely.
It must be it.
All right, you guys ready to roll into Part 2 here?
Yeah,
we got a lot to talk about.
My fire.
I'm gonna smoke something different from you guys. But
What are you smoking?
yes.
Liga Corona Viva.
Liga
Corona Viva.
Corona
Big
Viva.
Liga fan. Big Liga fan.
You can say it. It's all right.
Gary's got good taste.
He does. Honestly, Gary, when this is all said and done, I'm going to have a drink.
Hey, I'd like to have a cup of coffee.
Hey, we can make that happen.
Jennings Java.
You have a coffee night.
Absolutely.
Do what?
Have a coffee on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. We could do that.
If only I knew someone that had good coffee locally
Yeah.
that I could feature
So
on.
I heard Folgers is actually doing really good shipping deals.
Have you ever heard of instant coffee? You just put it in a glass and you stir it, and then at the end you get to chew on what's left.
Don't talk to me about it, because my grandparents, out of all of this, my grandparents are still stuck on instant coffee. Convert them.
You got to, man. All right, let me roll into this there. Part 2 here. All right.
Participation trophies.
I drink Black Rifle Coffee Company.
That a company that big should not be allowed to make coffee that good. Like, so serious.
And it's all better known.
It's
Right.
I gotta sign off, Steve, at about 9:30 also.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
What time is it?
9:12.
And 9:40 maybe. 9:40.
9:45, Gary. Come on.
Is it your bedtime or what? You got something going on?
I got something going on.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right, let's roll into it then. All right, Nate, hit it. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 111, participation trophies. We just finished up part 1, and I really enjoyed the Davidoff Yamasa, and I know Gary and Nate did as well. We had some different bottles, and we're still sipping on different bottles right now. But guys, I have Gary Wassmuth, Nate Hale, and also AJ Kazmerzak. Might have Dustin Bovey actually chiming in as well. Might bring him back on here, which I'd like to do to tune in. So I'm going to dive right into it with the sponsors. You see it if you're watching on the video, YouTube or on Facebook. Tinderbox at Easton for sponsoring us with a featured cigar, that Davidoff Yamasa by way of Dan Burris from Davidoff Cigars. And then also Altadis USA, which I've got the Aging Room Original. And I'm going to light that up next here, but I'm still enjoying the Yamasa. And also BS Cigar Company, we have the gold and silver from BS Cigars available for shipping. Contact Easton Tinderbox at gmail.com, and we will work with you during this time that Ohio is one of those states that is on the stay-at-home order. So we are working the best we can with it, but just get a hold of us through the podcast. If you mention Bourbon and BS podcast, if you're ordering cigars this week, whether it be the Davidoff's, Aging Room, BS, or anything else, we will do free shipping for you, standard shipping, if you mention the Bourbon and BS podcast. So we appreciate all that support. This is a time where we all got to come together, and I'm happy with the community we have. Also, the patrons on patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. Thank you guys very much for contributing to this. This helps this thing go. This helps between our live feed subscription, also posting it every week and every month. We do have subscriptions to do that. So that helps us out, and I appreciate all the support out there. The lighting in my garage, for example, is just an odd thing that a gentleman, Sean Wilkinson, has been on the podcast. He is also quarantined at his house, unfortunately, but he likes to hang out. But he contributed something, just went on Amazon and purchased it. And also guys like Bobby Hirschman, Bobby Crow, a couple other people, Nate, obviously AJ, anyone's coming on that's contributed bottles and everything else that's helped us out. It's fantastic. So I appreciate it, and I hope you guys do as well at home. So thank you guys very much. With this conversation, so what I did was tonight, I didn't want to do the whole COVID talk again. I mean, this is just... Let's talk about something else. Let's shift gears. We're not talking politics. We're not talking COVID. We're not talking about what we should do, what we shouldn't do right now. Let's get back to a little bit of the basics here and
give
talk about
some normality.
What's that?
I said, give people some normality. You know, a topic that comes up in day-to-day life.
Well, it's interesting because I was thinking about it. So I had Gary already signed up about a month or so ago. And so Gary, give me a little bit of background, and AJ and Nate, briefly. The reason I went with participation trophies, because what I know of Gary, I've known him for several years, and going way back, he was very much a competitive baseball player. And he went to a certain level. Then he was a business owner. Then he sold his business. And I'm just paraphrasing. You can get into the details, Gary. Then he worked for the business that he sold, double dipping a little bit. And then he got into the cigar business because it's a passion of his. And he still wants to be involved in that. But he's been very active. But when I talk about participation trophies, it's more of that ideology that is out there right now. And it's interesting to talk about that right now, in my opinion, just because there's no sports really, whether it be rec, high school, collegiate, and professional, really. There's nothing going on out there in our given situation. So, Gary, give me a little bit of background. Give us all a background of kind of how you got to the cigar industry by way of sports, business, and passion.
Well, it's the sports. I just came out of high school, got picked up by the Pittsburgh Pirates, and just had a short stint playing ball. Got hurt in a car wreck, tore my arm, my elbow, and I was a pitcher, so I was done. Joined the Army, did a short 4-year stint with them, came out, sold cars, got into sales, and then just, really went from there. Started a small company, cab company actually, and ended up with 10 taxi cabs, sold those to a little Ethiopian fella in Columbus. If you ever see those around, it's called Bobcat Cab. Sold those, started a sedan service like Uber, but a lot smaller. Had a sedan, a van, then a bus, then another sedan, and on and on and on, up to 23 different vehicles.
Wow.
Had 18 full-time employees. Sold it off. Somebody made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Then didn't make me, but offered me money to work for them to keep the company rolling for them, which I did. And it was a year's contract. It turned into 2 years, and then it turned into 3 years. And
Funny
I
how
finally
that works, right?
I needed to say goodbye to that. Went into the cigar business for a while. Really liked it. I won't go into the rest on that part of it. Yeah.
Let's keep it positive.
But then I got a phone call from the company that I had sold that I went to work for, and they wanted me to come back and bring some of the business back for them. So
Yeah.
I had another year's contract with them, which it was actually a year's contract. Was able to walk away. So right now, here I am. I do sell real estate, and I've been doing that since 2004.
It'd be nice to see you get active at some point in your life. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be nice to see you do something with yourself, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. But you know what? If I could ever go back and play baseball again, of course, that was my passion. That's what I wanted to be. So
I love it.
And now everybody's sitting out. I mean, look, the Olympics have got to take another year break.
I know.
Do you realize what those athletes are going through right now? This might have been their last hope to do anything. Now they got to wait another year for this. It's a damn shame. It really is. I understand it, but oh my God, it's just amazing what these people are going through.
You're absolutely right. AJ, give me a little bit of background on you as well. Why, we kind of got this group together tonight. I invited AJ a little bit last minute here for an obvious reason in my mind, but we're talking about baseball here.
Dude, I mean, first off, Steve, thanks for inviting me back on. But
Happy to have you.
Gary, I mean, I had no idea coming into this that you had that type of background. And so with that being said,
that was on purpose, by the way.
I figured when this is over, when this quarantine's over, I still have my baseball gloves in the truck. We're going to play catch outside the tinderbox.
It's like father and son catch.
I was fortunate enough to actually be able to play college baseball at Muskingum University. And of course, you were a pitcher. I was a catcher. Steve, no jokes. And
I won't. Sorry.
But no. I was fortunate enough to be a collegiate catcher. I then started a coffee business with a good buddy named Daniel Jennings. And since then we've been doing business since 2016. That's still ongoing. Obviously, with the recent events, we just revamped our entire marketing scheme because of the fact that most of our clientele is restaurants. That's not working out right now. And so now we offer, neighborhood delivery service to Marion Village, German Village Brewery District. We're offering free shipping anywhere in Columbus and the, greater Columbus suburbs. Any orders over $25, we're offering free shipping. Our coffee shop is still open for carry out and stuff like that. And so I'm doing that. And then I'm also, kind of still being groomed to take over the family construction business. But no, man, I'm with the topic of the night, and then also hearing about Gary's background. Gary, I want to play catch with you. I've got a catcher's mitt and a 11 3/4 Rawlings in the back of my truck right now.
That sounds like a winner.
So for obvious reasons, that's why I wanted you two on together if I was able to do it, because I feel like, there's a lot of similarities there in a lot of different ways as far as when it comes to obviously baseball and competitive sports. And then also look at the phases. Just talking to you guys, every listener out there, is that I wanted to see this conversation kind of develop a little bit about, when I say participation trophies, it's just the competitive nature of sports that, Gary, in your, we have different ages here, right? We've got someone that's in their 20s, 30s. I'm almost 40. Gary, you're in your 50s, correct?
Yeah, 60s.
60s now. So it's like you've got different eras here, but I think that, you see some similarities just in the two of you, that Gary, you've done a lot of these things, and I'm sure, I would only assume that hearing AJ talk now briefly about where he's at, and him hearing you talk about what you've been through and where you're at now, there's a bit of a time warp there. There's a lot of similarities as far as being hungry and really trying to excel once sports is over. And you can play softball, like I play softball still and all that stuff, but it's like once it's over, that hunger, that drive doesn't necessarily leave you, whether you're trying to start businesses, you're trying to succeed in any career or anything else. But just in life, I think that's something that if you can stay on top of it, it doesn't go to where some people will easily just dip down in depression once that change happens. And they used to be here, and now they feel like, what are they? Because the baseball days, the football days, the sports days, the competitive, the high school, whatever is over. Nate, you played as well, correct?
Yeah, baseball was the first sport that I played. And then once I got into middle school and high school, that's when I was a 3-sport athlete. I was doing football, basketball, and baseball. Football was the sport that I went to college to play.
Yeah.
I got recruited by a D3 school to play football. I only played baseball through my sophomore year. And the reason I stopped playing baseball was actually the reason I stopped playing baseball and basketball is I had the same coach for both. And I had some issues with that coach and the way he was doing things. And I just didn't want to play for him anymore. And so that's when I focused on playing football. And I still played like some rec sports outside of school sports.
Yeah.
When I was in high school. So football became the sport that I went to college for, but baseball was my natural sport. That was my best sport. That was the one I had done the longest. That was the one I enjoyed the most. I was a catcher, just like AJ was for many years. And I absolutely loved doing that. And I wish I could have done it longer. But then, when I was in my career, my first career out of college, that's when I got into playing softball, and I was the guy. Yeah, it was a work team, but I was the guy showing up in baseball pants, the knee-high socks with the pants up to the knees, wearing cleats. Had the baseball bag with the glove, the cleats,
See, that's the way it should be too.
Yeah, I was that kind of guy.
Yep.
AJ, you need to commit, by the way, to the softball team this spring.
I told you, as long as the games are 6 o'clock or later, I'm there.
Keep playing hard to get.
Contract negotiations.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I'll do with the contract.
When I was in my 30s, though, I kind of jumped off. Started doing cocaine.
Really?
$350 worth a day.
Are you being serious right
I
now?
can't figure
I'm
out
being
if he's
serious
serious
right
or
now.
not.
All right. Yeah.
I lost everything I owned.
For those of you who don't know, like I've known Gary for years.
Right.
I used to work with him at the same cigar shop before I came to the Tinderbox, but I knew him even before that. I had heard some of those stories before, and yeah, Gary's got quite an amazing story.
All right,
Yeah,
Gary, go ahead.
It was just a point in my life. I was making big money, and I was spending it, and I was spending it on the wrong things. I mean, like I said, I was doing $350 worth of coke a day.
That was in your 30s?
Yeah, I was in my 30s,
Yeah.
and I just lost everything I owned. I had a condo that went, didn't pay for it because I wasn't paying for anything but what I was doing.
Were you married at the time?
I was married a number of times.
Well, at the time.
I'm on my fourth wife, so.
Well, sometimes it
But
takes
I've
practice to make
I've
perfect.
had this one for 28 years. So
She's had you for 28 years,
she's
more
had me for
accurately.
28 years.
All
Yeah.
right, calm down.
And if I was ever doing those things, that she would have never gone with me at
Absolutely.
that point. But so I really didn't lose those things. I know exactly where they went. But woke up one morning and my car was in the front yard. Couldn't remember how it was or how I got there. Started calling rehabs. The rehab center was saying, "Well, I can see you in a month.
Perfect.
Oh, I can see you in 2 weeks. If I don't go now, I'm not going."
That's right.
So finally, one guy said, "Let me call you back." He called me back. He said, "I'll see you in an hour." And I did that. It was in 1987, and haven't done it since. So.
Was it just the success? And that is kudos to you. I mean, that's fantastic to bounce back from something like that. I mean, depending on how long it went, but just in general, that's fantastic. But I mean, I guess with it, I have my assumptions, not knowing that, but with your competitive edge, growing up and everything like that, and then you said you're making a lot of money. I mean, what got you to that point where you were just like, yeah, let's just blow $300-400 a day on cocaine?
Let's blow.
The thing was is that the people that I was running around with then, the car salesman that I was running around with then, everybody was doing it. So I just did it and kept doing it. And I can tell you to this day, I love cocaine. But if I'd ever started again, it would kill me. I just know it.
That just sounds like the 80s.
I'm sorry?
It just sounds like the 80s.
Oh, it was the 80s. I mean, what else can I say, really?
Not making light of it, but I mean, it's just like you said, you were making money. You're used to being on the top of your game. Pun not intended, but I mean, it's accurate. You know what I mean? You're on top of your game. You were very successful. And then you had a life-changing thing happen in your early 20s?
No, it was actually in my early 30s till.
No, I mean, like your arm and everything when you were playing ball.
Oh, no, 19.
You were 19 years old.
You were 19?
So you weren't even quite an adult, really, and you thought you were going to be major league.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
got to pitch in 3 games. How about that?
Well, so not to halt everything, Gary, I respect the hell out of how transparent you're being with us, because a lot of people wouldn't discuss what we're talking about right now, and that's an ode to you, and then also an ode to this podcast as to, it brings out the best in people, and people feel comfortable sharing their stories.
No, it's very powerful.
It's just something that so many people get into, and then they don't get out of it. So I was just lucky. I was lucky that I did. God was on my side for some reason, and kept me away from it afterwards.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That's again very powerful, because I mean, everyone has their ups and downs, but I mean that's just like the drug. It's a high up, but man, it's a big down when you're fucking spending all your money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Gary's participation trophy was losing a condo and a marriage, probably, and
I
a
thought
bunch
when
of
he
other
said
things.
participation trophy is because I barely participated in baseball. That's when he first come out with that tonight.
No, you. All right, so Gary, you said you're gonna have to tune out here, in the next 10-15 minutes. So let me ask you this while we have you on the podcast here. So it was a couple years ago, I want to say, that participation trophies really became a big thing, right? Maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago.
I'd say probably 4 years.
4 years ago when I was growing up. And so my brief thing is that in the 90s growing up, I was a Chicago fan, and it was something that T-ball, we had participation trophies. But my mom was the one on the sidelines still keeping book when I was like 6 years old, 7 years, like whatever, however, how old you are. And then she would tell me, what I did, how many putouts I had. And it's just like, she'd tell me all the stats because she was used to keeping book, with my dad coaching baseball, basketball, before I was born. But, in the 90s, I wanted to be so much better at basketball because, again, Chicago fan, the Cubs were terrible, more or less. And then the Bulls were amazing. I had a 80+ mile an hour fastball, like 14, 15 years old. And then I just didn't want to really do anything with it because, I know, AJ, I know. Yeah. I had that awkward conversation with my dad my freshman year when he came and picked me up. One of the times where he's like, you could be somewhere on like at least a, baseball team D3 or possibly a scholarship D2 or whatever else. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to do that. I mean, this went on for a while. But I mean, that was one of those things that for me, the participation trophies were even back in the late 80s, if you will. They were a thing, but it stopped at like 5 years old. Yeah. It was like once you got to a certain level where it's like now you're throwing a coach pitch, and then it was like 9-10 year olds you're throwing the ball. There were no, like, even rec ball. There was no participation trophies. No. You might like the very I'd say the most comparable thing is on a team you'd have the most improved player. Like, you're still not necessarily the best player on the team, but you made a lot of improvement.
Yeah.
And that was for me as I grew up, that was like the participation trophy that was thrown out there, if you will. Let me give you something because you have tried hard, you've improved, but you're still not the MVP. We still didn't get the first place, second place, third place, whatever it is. Like, we're still at the bottom of the bracket. Let's try again next year, or we're not going to be good. I mean, it's just like it's just a fact of life.
Well, kids don't know how to lose.
Right.
That's just the way that it is right now. They don't know the disappointment anymore because they get a trophy because they were there.
We reward.
It doesn't make any sense to me. What'd you say, Nate?
I said we reward losing. That's what a participation trophy is.
Which is just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember a time, and I'm 25, so I fall right into that millennial category. It is 100% the younger tier of my generation that started this whole issue. And I'll flat out say I'm 100% against participation trophies once you get into competitive sports, okay?
Yeah. Make no mistake, the millennials get a lot of bad fucking rap, right? They get a lot of bad things. But you didn't create the participation trophies. Your parents did.
Yes.
So people that are, not, I'd say probably in the 40s, 50s right now, age bracket, call it. They're the ones that did all this. They framed the millennials, I mean, to do participation trophies. This is where they, like, to your point, Gary, where they said, you said that, kids don't know how to lose. They know how to lose. They just don't think it's a bad thing all the time. And I'm not saying you can feel bad about it, but I mean, there's some times where if you're not good, talented, you work your ass off, baseball's not your thing. Sports are not your thing. Whatever it is, you're better suited to be told that at some point and get over the disappointment if you can, and find something else to do. Like I said, I mean, even as a kid, I wanted to be better at basketball because I was a Bulls fan, for Christ. I mean, they were winning, trophies after trophies, and I wanted to be that. I was 5'10", and I could pass the ball, dribble, but I mean, I
learned how to shoot the three.
I had an okay shot, but yeah, I mean, I wasn't anything else. And like I said, I could throw the ball over 80 miles an hour until the fact that I was just like, I don't care anymore. And then I got, using icy hot as a 16-year-old before I even threw the ball. And I messed up my arm even doing that because I just didn't care. But I mean, it was something that I wish at that time. And I kind of chose my path at that point where I still played rec ball, but I didn't compete or try out for the high school team because I didn't want to do it. And it was just one of those things that I think more kids you need to either follow your interests or you need to follow the cold hard facts that you may not be good at what you want to do, and give it a shot, work on it. And then if at very most work on it in the background, but try to find something that you can succeed in life. That's what I love about sports in that way, is that it's something that you can use, that if you're very good at it, that competitive nature, you're good at that thing, you can apply that competitive nature. If you don't have the natural ability or the talent, you try your ass off. You're in the gym more often, you're practicing, you're doing all that stuff. But when it comes down to the end of the day, you just don't have that ability to compete at a level that's going to be success. Use that drive. And I think the people around you as a kid and even as an adult, even in your 20s, 30s, 40s, no matter when it is, you can apply for a job that you want to do. Selling cars like Gary did. You might be bad at selling cars. And if you get let go from a position, or if someone keeps you on and you're not making any money, you're not helping anyone, including yourself.
No.
So
Go.
as a point to that, I feel blessed. I had my dad as an assistant coach and a head coach, from kindergarten all the way up just before high school. So 8th grade, a lot of years. And he was the type, and like I said, very fortunate to have had this experience. He was the type that we would win a championship. We won a couple of championships when I was younger. And, maybe I went 2 for 3 with a single and a double and 2 RBIs. But you know what he would say as I'm holding the championship trophy? Okay, we're not even talking participation trophies. We're talking a championship trophy.
Right.
He would say, why did that, as a catcher, okay, why did that ball get past you in the 3rd inning?
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
And I am so beyond fortunate to have had that experience and not have the, oh, honey, it's okay. Here's your 3rd, 4th place trophy, your participation trophy. You tried hard. I would much rather have my dad or have whoever, get on me for the fact that I missed a wild pitch, a curveball in the dirt in the 3rd inning, rather than just say, it'll be okay. You've got next game.
I think there's a balance there, just like everything else, because I got a story I've told before where, I was like maybe 13 years old. I was pitching and all that stuff, and I didn't have it that day. Right. And my dad coached us as we were growing up, and a great coach and everything like that. But like your story there, AJ, my thing is that I didn't have it that day. My dad walks out to the mound, and instead of being like, hey man, son, you just don't have it today. We're gonna let's work on it and all that stuff. It was the famous line. You're not just letting yourself down; you're letting the whole team down.
And then
and like now, I mean, shit. At 13 years old, man, I was in fucking tears. I was like mad at him. I'm like, I'm not doing this on purpose. Even at 13 years old, I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not trying to miss the strike zone. Like
I'm trying to put it over the plate.
I don't want him to shell the ball, but it's like I just don't have it that day. And it's funny, growing up later, you look at even professional pitchers that get pulled in the bottom of the second because they are not doing well.
Exactly.
I also understand his viewpoint. Maybe not the most tactful person as a dad at the time, but I mean, looking back, his intentions were there, and I can appreciate it now because, again, looking back at it now, there are times in life where I realize I don't have it doing something, whether it be a day-to-day business thing or trying to work out, take care of myself. But that stuck with me because now doing what we all do and trying to, with this podcast, with the cigar shop and everything else, there are times where I actually do look at the fact that if I don't have it that day, I need to reevaluate and kind of refocus so that I can, whether it be one person or a lot of people, try to be impactful in a good way. And sometimes I do have to get pulled out of the game, and I have to pull myself out of the game just briefly to try to recenter.
So, Nate, we haven't heard about you. Let's chime in.
Well, no, I know Gary has a short amount of time left, so that's why I was letting you and Gary go back and forth while we had Gary.
I love it.
No, while you guys were talking, it made me think of two different videos. One was the ESPN 30 for 30 with Brian Bosworth.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the
Oh
boss.
yeah, yeah.
The Boz. So just like you guys talked about, when he was younger and playing football, his dad was one of those people that kept stats. And he would sit there and be like, man, I had an absolutely great game. I had 15 tackles, 2 sacks, an interception, a forced fumble. And his dad, after the game, would be like, yeah, why'd you miss that tackle?
Yeah,
Why'd
right.
you miss that one tackle where that guy ran up the middle? And he had a different reaction than what you guys were talking about. Like, to him, that demoralized him
Right.
because even though he had an absolutely great game, his dad made him feel like shit.
Yeah,
And he always tried with his son to not do that because he resented his father a little bit for the way he handled things, and he didn't want to do that with his kid. The other video,
on you know, you look at something like that, and then you look at some of these other kids that are out there, and I shouldn't say some, a lot of kids out there that don't have a father there at all.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, that's a valid
Just
point.
say one way or the other. And you know, now I had 2 great parents. They worked a ton, so they didn't go to my ball games or anything like that. I mean, rarely they would, but they were great parents. I can't put them down for anything.
Right.
But there's kids out there that just don't have a parent that can come to these things, and mostly it's the fathers. And so, you know, he caught help from his dad for that one, but you know, it might have made him work a little bit harder too.
Yeah.
For everything that he got.
Well, I think
or
that's something
eventually
you
steroids.
can circle back. You know what I mean? I think that's something that I learned that I think if I do become a parent at some point, and I probably will be hard on them. I'm not going to go the opposite route, but at the same time, I strive to have some sort of balance. So I'm not necessarily going to just focus on that missed ball that AJ had, or the missed tackle, or me when I wasn't able to find the strike zone.
Sure.
It's literally I think there's a way you can get the message across, but maybe not demoralize that individual. And this is the same thing in business. I mean, honestly, this is the same thing in business. It's one of those things where I feel like one thing in business that's very, very important if you are in a leadership role, management or otherwise, is that you praise in front of other people and you discipline or correct behavior behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I think it was the fact that it was ingrained early on, and I was smart enough to be aware of the fact that he wasn't necessarily keying in on that that pass ball, or in Gary's case, that hanging curve ball that they took for a triple. It's the fact that the meaning behind it is you can do better. You have stuff to work on. You can do better. You can be better. And at least from my perspective, and Gary, correct me if I'm sorry, I got to lean this way. Gary, correct me if I'm wrong. That then drove you to work harder at your craft. If I had a pitcher that I caught. We were best friends. He's going to be the best man at my wedding when I get married. He would hang a curveball, and then 2 days later, when his arm healed, we would practice that. Throw it in the dirt, make me work on it, things like that. Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, it would be something that just made you work harder for. And then if you had the big part too is it taught you teamwork. You can work with other people, and that's really, really important. So if you have that catcher, or you have anybody else that you can throw with, or if you have somebody to work with too, because you can tag team people even in the store on different things, to sell them one thing and then have somebody else come in and upsell them on something else. I mean, it's just something that needs to be done for business.
I think that business is my big thing, right? So like participation trophies, we haven't hit this part of it yet, but I think we're dancing around it. There's a level of responsibility for your actions, right? I mean, whether it's intentional or not, right? So if you have a bad game or whatever, you're talking about working on it after the fact. So you're trying to better yourself, AJ.
Yeah.
You're saying that. Gary, you're saying that as well. For me, it's as we get older and say, yeah, most people don't make it to the majors, no matter what the sport is, but it's just it's a statistical thing. But when it comes down to your everyday life, whatever you're doing for a job, if you're looking for, you have that mentality of a participation trophy as opposed to the responsibility of your actions and continuing to work on your craft, or if you blow a sale, if you blow something else, it's almost like you don't know why the person above you or the business is upset with you. And then when you're fired, you're like, what the fuck? I mean, like I've been showing up to work. I'm here. I'm doing my best. And it's like, well, fact of the matter is you're not hitting the goals. This is a thing in life. I mean, this is something. So again, you either need to chime in, as far as, you have to do better, or you have to find something else to do.
You can't just show up. I mean, if you just show up, there's your participation trophy, because you're getting a paycheck.
Yeah, because the paycheck is the participation trophy at that point. You're absolutely right.
Exactly.
I don't know. I just look at it as like, Nate, what do you think about that? I mean, as far as like, as you've worked a couple different jobs and all that stuff, and sometimes it's not fair. Sometimes you get cut from positions, and I'm not trying to bring up what I'm talking about, but there are times where you no. I'm just saying, like, there are times like that's
I'm going to sign off on that.
You want to sign off? All right, Gary, thank you very much. We'll get you back on in the garage here in the near future. We got some more Davidoffs for your next return. We got the Winston Churchill hanging out.
Gary, we're going to play bets in the Tinderbox parking lot, my man.
All right, that sounds good, and I want to have some coffee too. So
sounds good.
Bingo.
Hey Nate, hey Nate, don't let your meatloaf.
Thank you, Gary, very much. We appreciate everything. I appreciate you sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see you.
All righty. I'm gonna add Dustin back in if he's out there.
Dustin, you here? I'm trying to get people to.
I'm here.
I'm seeing a couple of my friends tuning in to the Facebook Live feed that also played sports at a higher level, and I'm trying to get their take on participation trophies.
Well, I also have Ryan Altizer, who's been a part of this, and he was funny though, seeing his comments here. If you guys are watching those, so he said, I'm 42. Do not blame me, when I was talking about the fact that it's much on the parents with that. As far as the millennials, he's not necessarily a parent of a millennial at that age, but he said that at that point it was always blue or purple was allowed. So I said ribbons. He said, yeah, I don't think you can assign the participation to my age group. This has been in place well before my age time. And that's where I think maybe it is maybe 50s and 60s, possibly, if that's what he's talking about. But he said that you can drive a young athlete away from what they love to do because it's all about them. He's talking about the parents there, not always the kid. And I think that's the balance that I'm trying to talk to. And he asked a question that you currently coach youth sports. And Gary, I don't know if he did coach, and I know that none of us do at this point. Oh, Nate, you do.
I used to.
Okay.
I used to.
What did you coach?
I coached middle school basketball.
And how did you handle that based on your experience, as far as how you handled the kids?
So one of the rules that I had, if you were a parent and you wanted to talk to me about your kid's playing time or something, I never wanted a parent to say, well, how come this player is playing so much and not my kid? Like, I'll talk to you about your kid. I'm not going to talk to you about someone else's kid. I'll talk to you about your kid. The question you need to ask is, what does your kid need to do? What does he need to improve on in order to get more playing time? Because I've never been a fan of participation trophies. I never had them in all my years of sports. Participation was, were you good enough to play?
Yeah.
There's good enough to make the team, and there's good enough to play. And it's two different things. You can be good enough to make the team, not be a starter or not be the sixth man, seventh man off the bench. Then, or you can be one of the best players. If you don't think your kid is getting enough playing time, then there's something your kid needs to work on. I'm not sitting there not playing your kid because I don't like your kid. I'm not playing your kid because I got other people that are just better or they want to win, and that's what we're going for. We're trying to win because just like, when I was a rep, I got let go. Well, if you look at sales, okay, maybe sales weren't good enough to keep my job.
Yeah.
I don't know what my sales numbers were. They never shared that with me. But if you have a job and you're not doing your job well enough to keep your job, don't be surprised if you don't get to keep your job.
Yeah.
I pride myself in being kind of the team lead with my current position with AEP.
Right.
I've trained more than half the staff that's on my team. And even though, I've only been there a few more years than some of them, because of my experience and because of how good I am at my job, that's why I'm in the position I am. I look at someone that I've trained, the guy that sits next to me, and he's been on my team for over a year, and there are simple things that he just still screws up, and it boggles my mind because I'm like, I trained you, you should know this. I'm here, like, if you need help, I'm here to help you. But if you keep screwing up on your own without asking for help, if you're not working harder, if you're not training, if you're not, in the business world, if you're not learning something new, then you can't blame those who taught you. You
Yeah.
only have yourself to blame. So there has to be a level of accountability whether it's in sports or whether it's in business. If you're in high school and you don't think you're getting enough playing time on the field or on the court, then you need to do something. And I think part of the first step, recognize that you're not, being that high level, but then also go to your coach or go to your manager and be like, where am I falling short?
Right.
What do I need to work on? Show the initiative. What do I need to work on to be better at my job? And if they sit there and say, well, here's the things that you've been falling short on, okay, I'm going to work on those. But I would also like you to help me work on those. Like, I would like you to help teach me, train me, whatever it is,
Right.
to be better. Show that you care. Show that you have a drive and that you have an initiative, and you're not cool with just being middle of the road or bottom of the road. Like, don't sit there and just coast through your day and be like, well, thankfully I have a job and I'm good with I'm just happy to have a job. Like, yeah, we're all happy to have a job, especially something like this going on in our day. But, like, don't just sit there and settle. I think
No,
that's
but I
what
think there's I've said this before, and I learned this years ago. There's three reasons, in my opinion, that someone is underperforming, whether it be sports or business. And I love Ryan all sides of it. What's that?
Are you going to talk about the tool belt?
Yeah, you like that metaphor, don't you? So the tool belt metaphor is that there's three things if someone's not performing. You either, you give them the tool belt, and if you don't give them the amount of tools that they need to perform the job in that tool belt, they will fail. And that's on you. If you give them all the tools in the tool belt and they choose not to use them or listen to you, like you're talking about, Nate, they will fail, and that's on them. And there's that point where they have a tool belt, but it doesn't have enough spots for all the tools needed for the job. So whether it be a hammer or whatever you need for that job, they don't have the capacity to be able to perform said task. And that is just a matter of fact, this isn't the right fit because you've given them all the tools. They just don't have a place to put them. And you've taught them how to do the job. They're trying, but they still cannot perform the task at hand. And I think that happens in sports. I think that happens in business, and that happens in life. Is there are three different ways. Now, if you have all the tools or you make do with what you have and you're able to scrape by, those are those guys like Rudy in the films, right? You know what I mean? That's that age-old story. That's the Rocky, that's the Rudy, that's all these things that all of us were raised watching. But I mean, that happens in life as well. You can succeed to a certain level and you hit a ceiling where you can't perform beyond that because you just don't have a tool belt that can fit all the tools needed.
I think
there's
that's
also
a very fair statement. Go ahead, Dustin.
Oh no, I was just gonna absolutely agree with Steve's point in the tool belt, and even before I ever heard him say it, I use it at work all the time.
Yeah.
And I've used it even in job interviews because I'm a huge advocate of communication. So I'm constantly communicating with my team, my department leaders of the expectations, making sure that they understand the tools. And when I walk them through different things and coach and teach and train them these maybe new methods or new procedures, I always ask open-ended questions at the end of it, like, what more can I do for you? Or what parts of this do you not understand? Rather than, hey, do you get this? Where it's just a simple yes or no, because they can nod their head and say, yeah, and walk away when really they may not get a piece of it or all of it. And if I don't ask the right kind of question, whereas, hey, what parts of this do you not understand? It forces them to stop and think about it. It kind of goes back to, my parts of, I marched in marching band in high school and then had the pleasure of marching in college as well. And Kathy and I both did at Ohio University. And whether you're a freshman coming into the band or a fourth or fifth year senior still performing with the band, you have to audition every single year for your spot in the block. And so for us, our participation in college was wearing the uniform. And then if you got to wear the uniform, you were great. Perfect. But you may not make the block for pregame. You may not make the block for halftime. And then those of us who, granted, there was probably at least 100 to 150 who got to make both pregame and halftime. We were the ones who actually, put forth the effort, went the extra mile, who actually got it. And, those are the others who didn't get to make those, but they still made the band. Those were what we called alternates. You got your participation, you got to wear the uniform, but you still have to put in your dues and your effort, whether it be learning the music or learning the drill or learning the marching style to earn your spot on the field.
Right.
And so Kathy and I have taken that with us throughout the years because we're both perfectionists and we're, it's drilled into us in band, like, no, if you miss a step, run it again from the top and you start from the beginning. And so with Cadence, she's a perfectionist and we're working with her to the point of with dance, because this is her first year in competition dance. And she's one of those, if she doesn't get it the first time, she shuts down. So working with her as far as, hey, you've got to keep working at it. You got to keep practicing. You got to keep trying. It's, we lead in with, hey, it's okay. It's okay to fail, but you have to keep working at it.
Yeah.
You have to keep practicing. You have to keep moving forward. And she's slowly starting to get that. And she's extremely smart and knows all the terminologies and stuff as far as more than people who are 1, 2, 3 years older than her who are in the same dance classes. But it's still her young age of trying to get over that. And I think parents today may have that background where they had the parent when they played sports where they were too harsh and they couldn't take that kind of criticism.
So you think that's it? You think that's they soften because of that? They went the opposite route.
I think it plays into it. I'm not saying that's the full exposure because everyone's personality is different, but a lot of your personalities grow as a child growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So your parents play a big role into that. I played sports for a little bit. Both of my parents never played sports. My dad's not a sports fan at all. So it made it difficult for me to learn different things. So I had to translate it to the best that I knew as far as getting better. I questioned myself why I sat on the bench a lot of the time.
Right.
But I knew I wasn't that great. I just loved to play. Whereas, marching band and, band playing the trumpet, and that was my niche. That was my groove. And I excelled in that. So I was able to translate that in a different manner, but not everyone is able to do that.
Right. I like what Ryan Altizer said about this. This is another good example.
Yeah.
And then Nate, I know you wanted AJ, you want to say something, but he said that, and he's a manager of people, also a coach of kids as well. But he says he tells all my guys who I manage, I believe in the 6-inch rule. There's 6 inches between a pat on the back and a kick in the ass. I'll use both as I coach you to be a better professional and achieve your personal goals. I like that. I mean, it's there's a very
I agree completely.
You watch, because he's, no matter what he's doing, that 6-inch rule or whatever it is that he is trying to improve them, right? I mean, it's always trying to get the best out of people, but he's going to praise them if they do well, and he's also going to kick them in the ass if they mess up. But it's a matter about how you respond. And I think that's what you're talking about, Dustin, is that it's how you respond. Mark also has been chiming in, which I like. He doesn't like the trophies as far as
my buddy.
That's your buddy.
So
go ahead.
Quick backstory, and then you get into it. But Mark, we at our college, we had created this group. It's called the Black Knights, and the Black Knights were the guys that wore the gear. You know, the ones that were okay with taking the criticism, those that, you know, were meant to stop any bad things, aka balls from getting past us, those that were meant to throw people out, stuff like that. When I was a junior, Mark Abar came in and he worked under me, and we kind of worked together. And so the utmost respect to Mark, for sure.
Yeah, good. Well, he was saying, though, is like, you know, I don't know if he's coaching or not, but his opinion, I think it's right along with what we're saying. But I want to shout out to people that are feeding into this Facebook Live and YouTube Live. But, you know, he said that no one really would work hard for a spot or playing time. These kids are growing up thinking, okay, I'm playing every single game no matter what, if I work hard or not. And then they think that way until high school. And when they finally realize they're not going to be playing every single day, they need to work hard every practice to get the opportunity. And he's struggling to teach, he says, because, you know, he thinks that it can all be contained if the parents talk to their kids and teach them this when they are younger. And I think that's something that it's interesting to see, because the participation trophy side of it is that it's not necessarily about coddling or you know, saying it's going to be okay, or you're going to play like at a certain level. It's like training in business. It's like as long as you're listening to me and everything else, you know, you can train and you can do well. But when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of the job, if you can't perform, then now you're on the bench or you're off the team. It gets to a certain point. Kids are kids, but I mean it's about grooming them, and employees are employees. That there is a certain level of grooming them to the level of what the goal of the team is. Because when we're in business, it's the same thing as sports. Is the point of the game is not only to learn how to work together and be out there and enjoy it, but it's also to win the game. That is it.
So go ahead, Dustin.
Oh,
shout out to Eric Espinosa, who just tuned in, by the way.
Love it. Got to get him some coffee. But no, what I'm realizing is it seems like a lot of people that have coached at the younger levels have a very similar thought. So, for example, my buddy Rusty Woodworth, we played ball in middle school together. He's a great guy. He says there has to be a happy medium. And going back to your guy, Ryan Altizer, he says, as a coach, you will gain a different perspective. From some kids, participating is their goal. As a top D1 athlete, winning was always the goal for me. As a coach, you see the ones you can drive and the ones you can work to only get the best they can give. And then, of course, I got to mention my dad, because, once again, forever thankful for the way that he brought me up in terms of, you know, this whole topic. He says, at the middle school and lower levels, should it only be about the best players? Should it only be about the best players in an attempt to win? Or at the lower levels, is it important to give playing time to more players in order to develop them by the time they get to high school? Also, Dustin, he really liked your band analogy. He says, keep in mind, everyone's calling is different, and therefore everyone's level of achievement is different as well. And with that short story, I will tell you that I used to get, as a kid, would get furious. My dad would go into these meetings and they would pick players. And it wasn't until my 6th grade year that we fortunately won a national championship. But I mean, we're talking 6th grade rec basketball, because the prior years, he would explicitly pick the more underdeveloped players in an attempt to better them. And it obviously, as a kid, never made sense to me. I was like, you know, why are you picking so-and-so? He's, you know, not going to contribute. He's not this, not that. And of course, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, you'll understand when the time comes. And so I'm loving the conversation right now. I mean,
Well, let me ask you this, guys, right?
Right.
So this is, I think, participation trophies. This is going back to the kid thing, right? And we can talk about
Yeah.
this all night, but we do have
Yep.
to keep on point, and we are on point. But I want to make sure that we do tie this off, and we can always revisit this
Absolutely.
topic again. But one thing that I think is it's interesting to me when you talk about participation trophies. What I always look back at as a kid, right? And it also is when you're doing job interviews. But as a kid, think about this, is I don't know what happens anymore with kids these days as far as in gym class, if there is gym class, because that's another one of those things that people have cut out when levies don't pass. And it was like, oh, who needs gym class? Like, it's just a fluff course and all that stuff. Bullshit. It's when you're picking the team for fucking dodgeball.
Exactly.
And it's not a good situation when you're the last person picked, or you're like you're standing there on the line and there's two captains and they're just picking the good players and all this stuff, natural athletes and all this stuff, and then you're the last player picked. I think that is something that, and I know it leads into a lot of the issues we have today. We've always had it, but it's a little bit more prevalent right now. As far as like anxiety, depression, and certain things, and bullying and all that stuff is, I don't want to dive down that rabbit hole, but I also think there is something that was a benefit about how you react. And again, Dustin, I love your point as a manager and now as a parent, is it's all about communication. It's about, if you are the first player picked, you probably aren't talking about it, but if you're the last player picked, there's got to be a level of communication between you and that kid, or you and that employee, that why you're at the bottom. You know what I mean? Like, that's another thing. Yep. You either pick a different path. Do you either try to get better, or do you try to learn how to deal with hardships like that as a person, whether you're fucking 7 years old, or you're 28, or you're 40, or whatever age you are when this happens, when you're the last picked on a team, or you don't get that job. You got to learn how to respond and keep moving forward, I feel like.
Well, without a doubt. It's really important, the communication piece. And, we keep kind of reversing back to, the childhood and, the kids growing up. And it's honestly not any different than if, when I'm coaching adults at work.
Right.
It may seem different, but it's really not, because I can have, 130 employees, and the ages range from 14, 15 years old all the way up to, 60 and 70 years old. And the point of the matter is, you have to tailor your communication and your message to the particular person that you're trying to get the point across.
Yeah.
And to kind of touch on a couple points, not to go down that, but I was going to hit on it and, final remarks, but,
yeah, go ahead with the closing remarks. Let's start it off, man. We're at that point.
So,
Yep.
And I will say that I like what, Eric Espinosa just said. You always fall forward, never backwards. And that's something that you have to be taught, unfortunately, that it's not a natural thing that when you fall, people feel like you fall backwards, but he's absolutely right. You fall forward. That's a great point.
Right. And the biggest thing is, when you do fall, you have to get yourself up, brush yourself off, and take that next step. I had a manager who gave me the analogy, when I was originally trying to get into management, of, I would always have these big grand ideas of, hey, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to make these changes, but I didn't know how to get to there. So at the end of the day, the only way you can get to the top of a mountain is if you start at the bottom and take those steps up. There's going to be moments where you slip up and you fall down and land on a ledge, but you have to get yourself up and keep climbing back up, and realizing that maybe that other step wasn't the right one, or if it was, you need to approach it in a different manner.
Right.
Being someone who's not an OSU fan, no offense, but there is a book out by Urban Meyer that I've had a lot of other managers reference to. He used the 10-80-10 rule when he coached at OSU. You have your 10% at the top, you have your 80% in the middle, and you have your 10% at the bottom. You can coach and coach and coach the 10% at the bottom to try to get them up. You may get some up into that 80, you may not. but your best opportunity is to coach that 80% back up into the 10% to help better your team. I've had numerous people that I've promoted to department heads that, I had to coach and teach and train, and I'd work with them. And if they didn't get it, then the conversation would have to change. Whereas, hey, look, if you can't get it, then unfortunately I'm going to have to find someone who will. And I hate doing it, but it's the words that have to be said sometimes. And sometimes that lights a fire under them that gets them to move. But at the end of the day, it's all about the communication piece. If you're a coach of kids, you have to understand that the kids are learning no matter what age they are, whether they're 4, 5, 6, 14, 15, 16, 26, 46, whatever. Everyone's learning. At kids, they're soaking everything in at that time. So you have to be that role model for them to help them succeed and to be the person that you see them to be and that you want them to grow into, because you're ultimately going to shape their future.
Yeah. No, that's great. AJ, how about you? Closing remarks here. I like what Ed Harper said.
I'm still keeping up with the conversation that's going on, and so I'll put my closing remarks as this. I actually learned, not that I don't learn something every podcast, but I learned something very valuable this podcast, in that my buddy Rusty, my buddy Mark, Ryan Altizer, and even my buddy Ed Harper, who chimed in late. He had
Great comment right there.
Do what?
It was a great comment that he had.
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I mean, the gist of it is that my teams embrace a winner's mentality, but that's partially because they get the participation recognition by attentive coaching. And so with those guys, and then also my father chiming in via text message because for some reason he doesn't want to comment on the podcast.
Get off Facebook or YouTube.
It's one of those things where it's a time and place. You need to know the age group. You need to know who you can push. You need to know who is trying to move on to the next level. I came into this topic thinking, participation trophies are dumb and stupid and there's no need for them. And now I'm leaving the conversation understanding that, they do have a place as long as the place is consistent growth.
Yeah.
And so that's my closing remarks on it.
Fantastic. Nate, what do you got, man?
So
you look very relaxed, by the way.
Thanks.
He's not used to being on camera all the time. What's that?
Yeah. I got a fire pit next to me, so it feels nice.
Trying to get warmed up. I got it.
Body.
It's fair.
But no, whether it's a child and parent, an athlete and a coach, or an employee and a manager, that child, that athlete, or that employee, they can take coaching different ways. They can take criticism and either fold and collapse under it, or they can take that criticism and grow from it. But I think part of that is how the other side communicates that, how the parent or how the coach or how the manager communicates it. If you just sit there and tell that person, you know what, you really suck at your job, whether it's your behavior, whether it's how you play, or whether it's how you do your professional career, if you just sit there and say, you know what, you really suck, that comes across as negative. So I think they may be less inclined to try and grow from it. But if you sit there and approach it like, you know what, you're not doing things as well as you could, or as well as you should, or other people are doing. Here's where you're falling short. I want to work with you. I think there has to be some level of responsibility on the coaching side to bring that person up, not always to put them down, but also how you lift them up.
Yeah.
Because you can lift someone up while criticizing. It goes both ways. And I also thought of a video that Mike Rowe had put out years ago about following your passion or doing something you're good at. Like Mike Rowe had a passion for wanting to work with tools and build things, because that's what he learned from his grandfather.
Yeah.
He wanted to build things. And then he quickly realized that he sucks at that.
Huh.
And so he's like, you know what? I have a passion to build things, but I'm not good at it. Let me do something I am good at and make that my career or my life. And yeah, I think the same thing can, like, if you think of a singer or think of American Idol, there are
Right.
thousands of people every single year that audition for American Idol because at some point or a long time in their life, people have told them that they are really good at singing. And then they actually go and sing in front of professionals.
Yeah.
And when that professional says, you know what? No, you're not good enough. You don't have what it takes. They completely fold. They completely collapse because they've been told their entire life that they're good at something, but then someone tells them they're not, and they completely collapse. So there's a difference between a passion and what you're good at. And if you can make your passion your career, go for it. That because not everyone has that opportunity. So, but kind of back to the participation trophy. You shouldn't get rewarded for showing up to work.
Agreed.
Like I don't expect to get a bonus, or get the bonus that I do at my job just because I show up every day. I don't expect to get rewarded, whether it's a weekly or monthly basis, just because I showed up and I did enough. Like I have people in my company that want to work with me because I do my job at a high level. Because I'm so good at what I do, they want to work with me.
Right.
So I collect a paycheck because I participate, but the additional accolades, whether financially or otherwise, that's because I'm doing great at my job, not just showing up to my job.
Sure. Well, so yeah, I mean, all good points. I like what Ed Harper said there, AJ. Your contact there. I mean, I think there is a level of in life, in business, the participation trophy is. It's just the symbolic part of it is the trophy part. He says it's good in his opinion as long as there's a goal in mind, and I agree with that to a point. But and not everyone needs a trophy. It needs a conversation, and a lot of things we talked about tonight were if you're not good at, like what I try to talk about, if you're not good at it, I mean, you serve that person better to say, all right, this is the level of if you're getting that level of enjoyment out of it, that's fine. Let's find a place for you to do that on the side. This is not something that you are going to be the primary on. This is not what your life's going to be. If you like it, you like playing baseball. Let's get back to that. You're not at that level where you're going to get that high school team or beyond that. You may or may not be talented, but the intention's there. You're trying. Try to find this as something that you can do as a hobby, and that's where we leave it. I'm not going to give you a trophy for that. If you're good at sales, you get commission typically, but you're not going to get a trophy for that. I'm not going to give you a certificate for showing up to work, like you said, Nate. You showed up to work. That's fantastic. However, when you get here, you may be not that great at your job, and now as someone that as a manager or something else, or as a peer, what are you good at? Let's figure that out, because it's not necessarily, I know what you're saying about that with Mike Rowe and everything, Nate, and I think it's a great analogy, and I think it's a great example. But at some point, sometimes you can do both, but try to find something that you're good at actually making a living and what suits your natural and adapted personality so that you can make a good living. However, sometimes it's not exactly what you want it to be, to your point, Nate. It's not necessarily your passion, but sometimes it works out that way. And sometimes there is a sacrifice that you're not going to make the millions you want to do if you want to work that passion, because it's just not in the cards. So I think that everyone does each other a service by being honest and communicating, like Dustin really, really harped on, which I agree with, is that it's all about the communication, but it's how you deal with people. And I think participation trophies are an easy way to not have a conversation with someone, which is the truth behind all of this, is that people, whether they're parents, employees, employers, kids, whatever, you can't fucking talk to each other. And therefore it's like, hey, let's have a feel good here real quick. You're not only getting orange slices and juice boxes today, you're actually going to get a trophy because good job. Who the fuck cares about the trophy?
Right.
Tell him you did a good job. To Ed's point, the recognition is, hey, we tried, we showed up, we didn't have it this year. Mm-hmm. And you know what? The other team that beat us, the other salespeople that beat you, the other company that is doing better than us, let's figure it out. How can we get better, first of all, and then how do we get better? But
how many of us keep 5th place trophies?
Just don't stroke the ego just to make sure everyone's happy. Work with them and make them better people. That's my closing remark. Yep. Is the whole point of this is to make people better. And if they don't want to be better, that's fine. But if they want to be better and if they want to continue to grow and succeed, they may never be that major league pitcher. They may never be that. But let's find where you fit and where you're happy, and that's where we fall into place, and that's where the true happiness, and that's where the trophies come out. Because you know what, you didn't get MVP, but goddamn, you tried hard every day. You showed up and you put the work in, and you're trying, and we're gonna live to see another day. Hey, yep. Go ahead.
So, very last thing I'm gonna say is actually a comment from Rusty that I actually think kind of wraps up everything.
Yeah.
He thinks that conversations need to be had at the end of each season, that yes, this trophy is for the hard work, but that's not the goal. This wasn't how we wanted the season to end. So what are you going to do to reach the goal next time? And his final sentence is honestly what wraps it up for me. Coaching people should never stop.
Right.
Love it. Love it.
I love it. Guys, thank you very much. I mean, I got a lot out of this. Gary, who's not on anymore, but hopefully he'll listen back to how we finish this. Guys, everyone, guys and girls on the comments, you guys are awesome. Share it, like it, review, share the Facebook post, share the YouTube live for people that aren't on Facebook if they want to watch the video. Guys, the Yamasa was fantastic for those of us that smoked it. I enjoyed my David Nicholson Reserve. Nate, you're holding up the glass. You just waiting for the cheers?
Oh, wait, Hang on. Let me pour a half ounce.
You can't cheers with an empty glass.
Got it.
I'm holding my bourbon and bullets glass.
I love it. Episode 111. Thank you to our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, Altadis USA, and Be a Cigar Company. You guys make it happen. And also the Patreon page, patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. Thank you guys for chipping in and helping us do this. Hope you guys got out of this as much as I did. All of you guys included on the video, as well as everyone listening out there. So thank you very much. We'll see you guys next Wednesday for another episode, probably remotely because of what's going on in this world. But thanks for bringing it back to what this podcast is all about and talking about life afterwards and not just what's happening today. So guys, cheers. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Happy Whiskey Wednesday.